gonna go on.
That's it. We are live. Today is Friday, the 25th of May, 2018. On the panel is Astral, Patricia, which you know, and our guests of today are Peter and Peter. Hello. Yay.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Yeah, I could see viewers. Yeah, thank goodness. That was really weird when we went live last time, and you know the chat room were buzzing away, and yet there was nobody could see it. That was really annoying. And then I stopped it, and it was live. It was recording, so that was all a bit weird, really.
Sure. Yeah, that's fine. But it's fine. It works. Everything works out right in the end. So maybe we get the other link up there. You can see people in the chat if there's people in the chat. Oh right. Okay. Yeah. Anyway,
I sent you the link, didn't I? Anyway, how are you guys?
Yeah, we're fine. We're fine. Yeah, we're fine. We've had a very constructive week, which has been really good. You know, we've been annoying lots of people as we do, especially a couple of people. Because after we've recently done like 3 videos on Scott, or we've done 3. Our last 3 videos have included material about Scott and the Antarctic, and we've always thought it's just a story. That's all it is.
Yeah, talk about that, because that was one of the questions. Because obviously, I'm very interested in the bit where you think water is air and air is water. I know they're slightly different, but yeah, almost the same thing. And then obviously, yeah, your video last night had Antarctica. It had Justin Welby, and it was about rust.
Oh,
so
rust,
I thought maybe there's 3 subjects we could talk about. So talk a little bit about this Antarctica bit then.
Well, it's our view after reading a lot of the material online, you know, Wikipedia pages, some pages that we've discovered today. The story of Scott and the Antarctic. Going to the South Pole is just a story. It's nothing more. It's only there to capture people's imaginations and get it instilled in people's mindsets that there is a South Pole. I think personally, in my honest opinion, I think they did go down to Antarctica. They went down to the ice shelf. They took a few pictures. Did a bit of exploring and come back basically. Incognito.
Yeah. I was watching. You basically you were looking at a video of these people working there, and they said they could work outside for an hour and a half down there, and then they had to go in and get warmed up, and their beards were all got frost, you know, snow on it. And
yeah, I mean, the one thing we failed to realise in doing the video last night, or the bit of the information we missed out last night, was the fact that Scott allegedly, in the story, this is the story version, and that is he got down to the South Pole in January. Yeah, and he made his return trip back, and his bodies weren't found, or his body and the rest of his team's bodies weren't found for 8 months. So they were buried in snow or lying on snow or whatever for 8 solid months. Now that would have taken them into the winter time of Antarctica. Now, in the information, they died allegedly in a snowstorm, minus 40 degrees. Okay, that is cold. Now you can imagine they died, they perished, and then it came winter time. So you tell me what temperatures can go down to in Antarctica. And how many snowstorms? And how many snowstorms occur during winter time? It's stupid to ever think that those photographic plates survived. It's just ridiculous.
Well,
especially when we revealed that from 2 independent sources, that photographic plates shouldn't be frozen, and ideally they should be kept within. For storage, they should be stored or preserved within a temperature range of 15 and 25 degrees centigrade. Now, those pieces of information just do not reconcile the fact that they're giving us, that they're saying that Scott's body with his mates stayed in snow during winter time. You know what I mean? 8 months. It's just ridiculous, isn't it? It's just ridiculous. And if you really think about yourself just going down there, think about, you'd be sleeping in cold. How are you going to get to sleep? I mean, it's crazy.
Cold.
It's always cold. You can't escape the cold. But you can't, like the workmen who work on the Amundsen Scott South Pole Station. They could go in.
Can I interrupt you, Pete?
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about, well, how do they go on nowadays showing photographs? I know, right, we've still got, obviously we have digital cameras and what have you, but there must still be people that go down there with film, taking photographs. And the temperatures, well, they're still minus 30 or minus 40.
Yeah, my argument for that would be simply that Scott allegedly went down there in the early 1900s. Photographic equipment has moved on a hell of a lot since then. Film processing has moved on, so they moved from the plates to film, probably in the 20s, maybe something like that. But it's the case that for me, really, it's the case that there's no evidence, there's no proof that glass plates, which are obsolete now, they're not used at all, as far as I'm aware. There's no proof that they can survive temperatures of minus 40.
The harsh climate of Antarctica.
The harsh climate of Antarctica for 8 solid months. There's no proof.
We could always do a little test, couldn't we? Very easily.
We could do if we had some glass plates, and then we've got to go to Antarctica.
Yeah, and a freezer cold enough.
A
freezer cold enough.
What you could do is get some dry ice.
But you could get some dry ice and carbon dioxide
to glass, because you might find the glass just actually.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting to actually get an old camera, a glass plate camera, take a photograph, and then take the plate out and then expose it to dry ice, CO2, because that would plummet the temperature right down to minus 70. And then once you take the glass plate out and basically see if you can develop a photograph from that plate. Now, if you can do that, then that will dispel what we're saying, wouldn't it?
Yeah. But you've got to keep it in there for 8 months.
But you've got to keep it in there for 8 months. This is the thing, 8 months, that's a long time, So, but there's no proof there. Nobody's done it to say, but the plates are real. It did happen. No one's done it.
How does anybody go down there and walk around? We've had other people. There was an English guy, wasn't there, a few years ago? He'd almost completed. He hadn't done the whole of Antarctica, supposedly, but he'd gone so far. And he was coming back, and then he died. He died.
I don't know. The only person I'm aware of is, I think Ranulph Fiennes went down there.
I had a question, in regards to, what year did you say Cook went down there? In the 1900s?
Cook.
Yeah.
Oh, Scott.
Oh, sorry, Scott. Sorry. So, no, my question was, right, Scott, these are new teeth, right? Yeah. Cook went down there in 1773. And he travelled around for 60,000 miles. What about that story?
I can tell you. I've not had a look at it, and it's like what I say to a lot of people. There's so many people can make so many claims. People can create so many stories, but if you want to convince people that they're true, the veracity of a claim, you need proof. And when you look at historical stories, whether it's Cook, Scott going down to the South Pole, Hannibal crossing the mountains with all these elephants, not only do they go beyond belief, but you need proof to convince people that what you're saying is true. So
exactly.
I've just got to leave it open. It's possible, but I shouldn't accept it.
I think they've done. I think it's about. This is what I see looking myself. You've got cold places and hot places here. I mean, for instance, my daughter-in-law comes from Lithuania. Now they border the Baltic Sea, and yet they have really hot weather. Yeah, that's a lot more north. In the summer, they go to the beach up there. It's 40 degrees. We only see that area is almost really cold. The pictures on Google always have them looking at ice. That's not true. So they're lying. They're lying about it. You've got the Alps in the middle of a hot country and another hot country. You've got Everest in a hot country. I know Everest area is cold, but that's in a hot country. So it's probably the same with Antarctica.
Karen, can I say
There could be
something?
land on the other side. We just don't know. I know we don't know, but I just think they're lying, as per usual, about everything.
Can I say something, Karen?
Mm-hmm.
I lived in Sweden for a number of years, and it's true. In the summertime, I mean, you think now Sweden, they have a country. Their country is in the Arctic, or part of it anyway, the northern part, and their summers are just awesome. I mean, when I lived there, you know, we had great summers, 25 degrees or even warmer, and it's amazing. I'm here in Denmark also in the upper, I think we're 55 degrees up, 57, about that. I mean, I've been talking to Karen, and it's 25 degrees here. It's been awesome all week.
Yeah, so we'll
I
never
yield
know
the floor.
we'll never know the truth about all these places, will they? But I just think there are hot places here and there are cold places here. And Antarctica happens to be one of the cold places.
So we just typed something in the chat.
Yes, so sorry, yeah, but yeah, I mean, getting back to the topic, I mean, at the end of the day, you see, the whole thing about the lot, and that is there's so many stories out there, whether it's, like I said, whether it's Scott, whether it's the moon landings and Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong, whether it's you name it, you name it. The thing is that in my understanding, flat earthers are the type of people who want to see proof. They don't want to see some information written down on a piece of paper, in a book. They don't want to see some kind of photograph with no kind of context that can't, so they can't put anything in context. I mean, if you looked at a lot of the images of Scott, for example, I mean, you can't really put it into context where he is. What is he? Where's the proof that he's at the South Pole, for example? You see this Norwegian tent, you see a tent with a Norwegian flag coming out from the top, but how do you know that it was taken at the South Pole? There's no proof, and this is a theme that runs throughout a lot of the stuff that we're told about our history, the globe Earth, everything. And it's I was out in Chester doing me a little bit over the microphone, and this young lad come up to me, and he said to me, but there's what about GPS? I've got sat nav in, blah blah blah, and I'm saying, but so you're saying you're talking about satellites? And he said, yeah, there's satellite communication, all this kind of stuff. And I said, but where's your proof? Where's your proof that there are satellites actually orbiting the Earth? Where is your proof? And with that, he kind of and walked, and I'm thinking, but who's being reasonable here? Is it me or is it him just dissing me? I think it's me, because all I'm doing is asking, well, okay, there is a claim being made about satellites orbiting this globe Earth kind of thing, but where's the proof?
Yeah, exactly. Prove it.
Where's the proof?
Can I interrupt you again? I'm sorry,
yeah.
but on the same subject. These satellites. If people believe there are satellites in the sky, exactly like you're saying, where's the proof? You ought to be able to see if there's something like 120,000 satellites floating around above us, right? Why aren't they crashing into each other, and why aren't they falling down?
One of the things that we've discovered about the satellite television, and that is when you go on I don't watch TV at all, but if you do have satellite television and you have a problem with it, okay, when you go onto the website or the troubleshooting page for the channel service you're using, whatever, there's nothing there about a faulty satellite.
What happens if the
satellite breaks down? Is malfunction? There's nothing there. You go and check yourself. There's nothing there. They'll always put it down to the TV's the signal. Something wrong with your box. Something wrong with this. But there's never anything wrong with the satellite. I mean, come on, this is ridiculous, isn't it? You know, and we're just rational, sane people who are wanting proof. You're making
Also,
a claim. Where's your
they're,
proof?
they're up there for years. No servicing, no batteries. Like you say, nothing goes wrong with them.
Yeah, no, yeah. It's because it's all rubbish.
It's just, yeah.
It's just rubbish.
Fairy tale.
It's a fairy tale. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we did a video years ago about we called it Our Orbiting Satellites Real, and we found out that in Ireland, the company I believe who's responsible for the telecommunications in Ireland, which are 2RN, 98% of their telecommunications are carried out by ground-based transmitters, radio transmitters, emergency services, Wi-Fi, satellite, GPS,
TV.
all this kind of stuff. It's all done through land-based transmitters. No, there's no need. That you see, the information I'm getting, is that telling me that only the 2% are receiving satellite, signals? It's just rubbish. It's ridiculous. It's rubbish. They don't. There's nothing out there. Nothing. It's just rubbish. And all we ask for is proof.
All those lies.
Yeah, but you've got to. I'm sure I've said this and I like saying this because it makes people realise that we live in a society. We've got to lock our houses. We've got to lock our cars. We've got CCTV everywhere. Okay, when you go into a shop, there's security. How much mistrust have we got in our society? And people don't seem to want to question the information we're given. Yeah, with all this mistrust, surveillance, and they don't seem to think that the information they're given they think it's true.
The information is immune.
The information is immune to that kind of
to the mistrust.
Yeah, I mean it's just ridiculous, isn't it? But I mean it's it's just laughable, really. You get to a point where you reach a certain understanding of life and the world we're living in, or the earth we're living on, I should say. And you begin to realize that people who walk around thinking the earth is a globe have got mental health problems.
Yeah.
They are very. A lot of them are unreasonable
people. They're the crazy ones if they think we're traveling at 260,000 miles in 3 different directions at Mach 80.
Yeah, but the main thing is there's no proof of it.
That's it.
There's no proof for it. There's no proof. What proof have they? This is one.
I think if everyone used some logical thinking, you're echoing, guys. Someone's echoing.
Oh, hold on. No, you carry on.
Where's the? It's simple reasoning, isn't it? You're not spinning. We would feel that effect when you're up in a plane and it suddenly drops. Suddenly. Even if it's only going to drop a foot, you feel that drop. You're driving in a car, you go over a bridge, you feel that drop, don't you? When you go around a curve, you feel it. You're on a roundabout, or if you just spin round 3 times.
We'd be on this horrible merry-go-round. We'd be holding on for dear life.
Yeah, and when I look at the stars at night, if the sky's clear, I look at the stars at night, and during the day, if the sun's out, I'm looking at the sun, and I don't see anything odd. I don't see anything odd about us and relationship with the sun. The sun goes flying over my head every fucking day. Oh, sorry, every flat day. It's been doing that ever since I was born. The same with the moon. It's like just going past us, We're not moving. I yield the floor.
I was just going to add, because you mentioned about that we don't feel as if we're moving. A globe person would say the reason why we don't feel as if we're moving is because the atmosphere is moving along with us. So we feel as if we're not moving when in fact we are. I mean, okay, there's somebody else making this claim. Okay, not only where is your proof, but if that is the case, how can full court pendulum work? It's just ridiculous. How is it possible that the Earth and the atmosphere all rotate in unison, allegedly, but a full court pendulum can swing and detect the rotation of the Earth? Can precess the way it does.
Yeah, and then there's no effect on the Gulf Stream either. Does that make sense?
Pilots who've come on, those that have woken up, they say it's absolutely impossible to land a plane on a moving ball. They wouldn't be able to land the plane.
And
Sorry.
there's all.
Go on.
Oh, right. And there's also, well, all these globies use even we use the words like sunrise and sunset, and you're actually applying the motion to the sun.
Yeah. So
in those words.
So the setting is related to the sun. It's not related to the earth. We don't have an earth rise or an earth set. It's a sunset, sunrise. So the setting and the rising is attributed to the sun, not the earth. So, those words typically, or they exemplify the fact that the earth doesn't move,
Yeah, just like when you look
Yeah,
at your
people are thinking, isn't it? That's what it is.
That was well said.
I do remember
actually.
something that you said, by the way. You said that you feel that although you're making this obviously for everyone, but the most people that come to your channel to moan and groan are the globies.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we don't mind. I mean, I don't mind, but
because they give us some good material.
They give us great material. They give us a link or something, so we go and follow the link. We look at the information. We think, but it's bullshit. We criticise it, and we're able to include
language.
It. Sorry about the language, but it is quite good. But after a while, it does tend to get a little bit boring and monotonous, because you're
talking to the same people.
You're typing to the same people, and they're not coming out with any proof. All they're doing is regurgitating material. But I know about that. Tell me something I don't know. Let's see some proof.
Yeah.
Let's see some proof. I mean, somebody said I've gotten now to the point where a lot of globe people, they say ships go over the horizon. I say, no, they don't go over the horizon. In my understanding, ships go beyond the horizon.
Yeah.
Just that word beyond changes the ball game. Just Absolutely. That one single word beyond rather than over. If you talk in over, there's over, whereas beyond just means you're
further back.
So, 1 second, you just moved out the way, Pete, and I saw your guitar on the sofa.
Oh right, yeah.
Oh right, yeah.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Anyway, yeah, that's a really good way of putting it, actually, beyond the horizon.
What does that mean? Oh, right, yeah. Does that mean, oh, right, yeah.
What's
right, yeah.
What's that?
What's that?
About your guitar being over your shoulder.
No, it's on the sofa. It's on the sofa, but yeah, I play some guitar in me spare time.
You'll have to do a tune for us at some stage.
Which guitar were you talking about, Karen?
Which guitar?
Yeah, on your intro.
The green one, the green or yellow one.
Yeah.
Oh, that one, yeah. Yeah, we haven't got a song, so we can't do anything for anyone. He's getting better. He's getting better.
My finger picking is really good.
Absolutely, yeah. Just need to get him an amp.
But yeah.
Funny.
So what do you?
You're going to have to pump up the volume on that guitar, though.
I know, yeah. Well, I could hear it really well.
So what do you guys think of the conference in Birmingham?
Well, I'm glad it's happened for Flat Earth. What did you think about it?
We haven't really.
Well, we watched some Martin Leidke's video.
Yeah, Martin. I think he's been in the chat room. He's lovely, Martin.
Yeah, well, I've come across him once with I can't think of him. Jeff Stewart, was it?
I've met Martin.
Some American guy.
He's well into his history, isn't he?
He is.
He should do a bit of history in Chester,
because we don't think there were Romans in Chester at all. We think it's all rubbish.
Yeah,
that's our personal opinion.
Really?
Absolutely, yeah. We don't feel that the walls are Roman at all, because they're made of sandstone.
Can I ask you? So Chester is named by the Romans, apparently, and also is Manchester.
Can I just
apparently?
Sure. But can I say that it's possible that the name Chester and even Manchester have been given to the places by people who thought that the Romans were here.
Right.
Yeah. No, I haven't now.
No, and also you got to remember that most cities in England had Roman names.
Most, yeah, absolutely.
I
Most
didn't
cities.
think about it myself because you know when you think of the Romans, you still think of pillars and everything, but actually
Yeah.
they were building with bricks and they filled everything with plaster to make it look like they were columns. So they were not as advanced as those people who left the dirty, great big granite slabs that are tons. That weigh tons.
Like the Mayans and people
Well,
like that.
before that, even who are the Egyptian people? Even they're probably
Sure.
before
Yeah,
that.
but it's getting back to what I said earlier, because you'll find that throughout this whole kind of like hangout, you'll find that what will come up now and again,
Fred.
what will come up quite frequently, and that is we're looking for proof.
Proof.
Where
Show
is
us
the
your
proof,
proof.
for example, that the Romans were in Chester? Think about it logically, okay? In the Cheshire area, there's a lot of sandstone. Okay, now sandstone is a very weak stone. It's not very strong. It's porous. It doesn't really last. But you can scrape it with a spoon. Yeah, I mean, if you wouldn't build a prison out of it, that's for sure, because all your inmates would you wouldn't have any left. You know, but but
they'd be
and
outmates.
they're saying that. We've got a cathedral made of sandstone. The walls are made of sandstone, and yet they're saying that
they're Roman.
They're Roman walls, and the Romans were here. And you think to yourself, but hold on. Now, with the information I've been given, it doesn't really make sense for the Romans to build walls out of sandstone when they can go to Wales, which is very close by, and get some proper hard rock stone, some granite or whatever, to build their walls and everything, a proper fortress, a proper, So it is our view that what happened was that in Chester, they built the cathedral, and like with a lot of cathedrals in the country,
cathedral cities,
a lot of cathedral cities had walls. Canterbury, York, Winchester, probably Salisbury, maybe as well.
Any cathedral city has.
So what they did when they built the cathedral, sorry, I don't know, it's just me with my voice. But when they built the cathedral here in Chester, they built the wall as well, out of the same material.
Every cathedral city in this country had when they built the cathedral, they built a wall around it at the same time. So Chester has a cathedral and it has a wall around the cathedral. So one can deduce from that the wall around the cathedral was built at the same time as the cathedral. And the cathedral was built around, say, the 1400s, I believe, was it 1500s? Or a bit earlier than that, probably 1,000
or 1200 or something like that.
But the Romans had gone.
So that's one little piece of information.
If they were here, had gone.
And also, there is a lack. There is a lack of structures that look Roman as well. I mean, when you look around the city, there's no. You wouldn't even think that the Romans were even there. If you were to go to say Grosvenor Museum that holds a lot of Roman treasures, if you can call it that, a lot of them are like bottles, pots, pans, and you think, well, hold on a minute. I mean, come on. I mean,
they could have been brought back from Italy.
They could have been brought back from Italy with people going on holiday. All the coins, the Roman coins that were found here, they could have been brought back from holiday. People going out to Italy on business, doing business trade,
hundreds of years ago.
In other words, where is the proof that the Romans were actually here? There isn't any.
Can I ask you, Pete?
Yeah.
Specifically because you're talking about it, but what about cobbled roads? There must be some of them, surely, and that's a sign of Romanism, isn't it?
Let me say now. You see, the thing is, because of the mindset that I have, I would see a cobbled road. We do have them in Chester. They are cobbled roads, cobbled stones, for example, are a material that is found in a lot of roads throughout the whole country. I've been to Canterbury. Yeah. There's been cobbled roads
the Roman
there.
baths, then?
But how do you know those were Roman?
because the Romans were known to build roads in a specific manner. They had good drainage. They had a camber to the road. That's why all roads have a curve to them because of the Romans.
Yeah, can I just?
And so they could match their what were they called? Their
legions.
What, gladiators? No.
Gladiators.
What are they called? Gladiators. They're soldiers. What were the soldiers called?
Legions.
The
Centurions.
The Roman centurions.
Centurions. Okay, would you like to hear my retort?
I would love to. I would love to, but that was just my little take. You know,
sure.
I like to think.
Yeah, sure. That's the whole point of it, because it helps everyone reach a much better understanding. In my understanding, okay, it's not possible that other people could copy. Let's say you go on holiday. You say you go and visit another country. Say you go and visit China, and you think, "Wow, their bloody railway system is brilliant."
Oh, well, I think we might as well copy it.
It's brilliant. The people don't have to wait so long. They've got good trains. I think we should copy it. A lot of government ministers in this country, they go and do. They go to other countries to find out and do research if they want to develop a certain idea that they want to install in this country, whether it's a rail service, whether it's a new scheme for welfare, a new policy. They go to other countries to get an idea on
how it's working
in other countries, what ideas they can would be good to adopt from other countries. And I mean, nothing's changed. They were doing that years and years ago.
So the Romans were here because we've got.
I don't know, were they? I just to be honest with you, all I see is a bloke dressed up in Roman gear. What was palmed off as Roman gear, going, and
we've got around that area. There's a lot of mosaic floors, and they're putting them down as Roman villages, and
there isn't that much.
But I'm going to say, you're talking. Sorry, I'm interrupting again. But you're talking specifically about Chester, only Chester. You're not talking about anywhere else in particular, are you?
Well, no, because we have.
I can only talk about Chester. I'm familiar with Chester, but I mean, obviously, it's like when you think about Hadrian's Wall, for example.
Yeah.
I watched a documentary many years ago. You okay?
Well, you have.
Yeah, probably because you're shouting on the microphone.
Oh, it could be. I'll move away. But think about Hadrian's Wall. Okay, Hadrian's Wall. Hadrian's Wall was built allegedly by the Romans. Okay, it's made out of stone. It's only about that tall in a lot of areas along the whole. It's not tall now, but. How do we know that it was built by the Romans? It could have been built by the Scots to keep the English out.
One thing we did notice on our research was that there is a wall that goes in China. There's walls everywhere. There's a wall going across the world.
To segregate people, because a lot of people can't get on. The Scots, obviously, we know that Scots don't get on with the English anyway, and vice versa.
Oh, we've lost Astral there. He obviously got an internet problem there. He'll be back in a minute.
But, especially with this referendum, the European referendum, we're well aware that the Scots and the English, there is some kind of
conflict. I'll tell you one thing that Martin saw, right, in his history, was a lot of these buildings, okay, they may even just be drawings, but they've got drawings of these great big buildings and roads, but there's no road. Hang on, Astral's calling me now. 2 seconds, sorry.
Yeah.
Astral's the wrong one. I'll send. Yeah, all right. I'll add you again. Hang on. I'll just add him again. How come they've got these magnificent buildings and yet they've got a dirt road? He reckons it's a mudslide. That we've had a mudslide. So the wall could have been higher then if we've had a mudslide.
I'd have to have a look at the material too.
Yeah, that's the great. Oh, there he is. He's come back on now. That's the great flood I'm talking about.
Are you talking a biblical flood?
whatever it is, whenever I'm sure we've been, when we looked on Google Maps, we could see that across this plane we live on, there are areas that have had great big electrical arkings. Sometimes they were huge and sometimes they're small. And when you get an electrical arcing, it goes in and comes out. So there's a positive and a negative. Now, when they were happening, if that was all happening, we probably were evaporated. The awful things would have been happening, but if that was, maybe that caused the big flood.
Who knows? I mean, it gets back to the thing that comes to mind is, okay, there's an awful lot of possibilities. There's so many questions we could ask about the earth we live on.
Yeah,
Decided to hide the history from us, haven't they? They've made sure that it's almost impossible to go back and link up the history. That was the point. They don't want us to know our history and how much we were much more further advanced in those days than we are now.
Can I say, I've also thought that those arkings could have been at the time that, the earth has been formed. Same with mountains.
Yeah, we don't know, do we, when they happen?
We don't know, exactly. We don't know. But I mean, to say that they've happened over time, again and again, that's only, we don't know.
They've manipulated the past.
Unless of course, we've, photographed areas and then found there was nothing there before, but now there is, obviously there is evidence. We can find
bits of the past, we can find bits of stuff that's left, bricks and walls and buildings, but they've done it so much that there's no way that we can put together who these people were, because they're another set of people. And the ones that could have the great big 1,000-ton blocks, I mean, who were they? How could they move thousands of tons? How could they make all these buildings? How could they have done it if we were basically, I don't know, what would we have been then? Cavemen. So none of it adds up, does it? So it's just all of it's a lie because something else has happened and they're not telling us the truth. I'll finish now. I yield the floor.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, we tend to, there's so much we can, speculate about. There's so much we can kind of like ask questions about. There's so many areas in, our existence that we can, what's the word, guess, estimate, or whatever. But at the end of the day, it's nice to just talk and discuss the concrete things and get to an understanding where we can, think, yeah, okay, well, we don't have to talk about satellites anymore because they're all rubbish. Do you know what I mean? And then we can move on.
It's like we were talking before we began this chat, just 2 minutes before we began this chat about foundation. Having a foundation is important because once you've established a foundation, then you're just building up from that, aren't you? Once you know that the truth, what you're standing on is like, oh yeah, this is right, this is correct. I've checked it, verified it, I've rechecked it, re-verified it, and then
that's the good thing about that, isn't it, Astral? Because they do their own experiments. They're looking into
yeah, exactly. But I mean, that's like, it's their way forward, and it's the way that we have to go, and we have to, talk to each other and verify things. And hey, yeah, it's right, man. This is correct. What I did this experiment. It worked. I checked it. I did it. I verified it again. It worked. Hey,
do you know something? That's a really good point to get on part of this video that you did last night about rust. And you were showing your little jar.
Yeah,
and the fact there was no air in there. So do you want to talk a bit about that?
Well, what we like to do is that, we're all educated in the globe society, and it's nice to get a piece of information that the globe society promotes and actually do something that challenges that piece of information. Like one of those information is rust, what causes rust. And we're told that it's oxygen, we're told that it's water, and we're told that you need an electrolyte. Now, we've actually managed to
get some steel wool, put it in carbon dioxide, which is a gas, it's not oxygen,
Damped, moistens.
yeah, damp the steel wool, and it's rusting.
Without air.
So that goes against,
Well, without oxygen.
Sorry,
so
yes, without oxygen.
So that goes against what mainstream tells us about rust.
Yeah, because we've come to realise that you can dampen a piece of wire wool or a piece of steel, and you can pop it into a jar filled with chlorine gas, and it will still rust.
Well, we haven't done it, but
We haven't done it, but we think it will still rust.
Yeah,
because
the steel wool, all it needs really is moisture, water, and an air in which
to perform or operate, or to rust for us to occur.
Because they're basically.
I mean, it's the same as we did. We're quite a wealth of what are we? Wealth of.
I was going to ask, are you guys chemists?
Chemist.
No.
Are you chemists?
We go to Boots. I go to Boots sometimes when I want to get something for me bunions. But we did. A long time ago, we did. There is this.
Just, are you going to keep on with the rust or not?
No, I was going to move on to something else.
But one thing that we have learned about the rust, and that is, all rust is just the breakdown of steel or iron into its composition parts,
component parts,
which is iron ore
and carbon
and coke
or carbon, charcoal, whatever you want to call it.
Coke and iron ore. If you put water, it'll break the metal down into those two components.
Absolutely, yeah, of course, yeah.
And that's all you see.
That's all you see. And like I said earlier, and that is so what they do to make iron or steel, what they do is that they dig up rust from the ground, basically, and iron ore, rust, and they put it into a blast furnace along with some limestone, calcium carbonate, and they put in lots and lots and lots of coke, charcoal, whatever, carbon in brackets, in dittos, and then they heat it up using hot air, basically, to temperatures that are like 1800 degrees centigrade, and then it all melts, fuses together, and out the bottom comes this molten iron. And so basically they tap that off, it becomes pig iron. Okay, the pig iron has a high carbon content, obviously, because of the amount of coke that's in the blast furnace. And so what they do is they reduce the amount of coke that's contained in that pig iron to give you your steel. So essentially what they do is they're adding the coke to the iron, to the rust, melting it down, and then they're extracting the coke from the rust to give you your steel.
Or having less coke.
So when you think about iron, when you think about the whole word iron, and that it's supposed to be an element, you've got to ask yourself: is there such a thing as iron?
What is it?
What is it? What is iron? Because all we know from what we've done, and that is, iron. They dig up iron. They dig up rust,
iron ore,
rust, iron ore,
oxide,
iron oxide, rust, and add coke to convert it into steel. And then when it rusts, it just decomposes back into its coke and iron oxide stroke open bracket rust. It's kind of a ridiculous kind of understanding. But
I think a lot of it that confuses what the trouble with mainstream is that mainstream complicates the simplicity. In other words, if you went to school or if you went to a lecture or whatever about rust or how they produce steel, they'd go through all these fandango
chemical equations,
reactions and processes and all that lot. But if they told you it in a nutshell, you think, oh, there isn't much to it.
There isn't much to it because it's a very simple process. They've been making iron for centuries.
Can I just say something really quickly? Thunderdome has said it's ironic.
Well, it's a bit like carbon fibre.
That's a joke, guys.
Yeah, that was good. That.
Ironic.
Oh, ironic. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I've just got that.
Oh, right, ironic. Yeah. I like that.
Ironic, yeah.
It's carbon fiber. When you hear carbon fiber, you think there's got carbon in it,
But it hasn't.
but it hasn't.
I mean, yeah, you see, yeah, I've got it's. I mean, we could go on. It's like they say to you that we breathe out, we exhale carbon dioxide. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's rubbish.
What are we
That's
exhaling then?
That's rubbish. Absolute rubbish.
Sorry,
What are we exhaling then?
what do you think?
What do you think?
Don't know now. Go on. Tell us.
Well, it's certainly not carbon dioxide.
Well, it's
That's for
what,
sure.
It's
Well, we don't think it's carbon dioxide.
Well, think about what you breathe in. Think about what you breathe in. And then you
I'm
breathe
going to go
out.
off on a limb. I'm going to say water.
Well, yeah. The dry form of water.
We did.
Plus also you've got some
Exhale breath condensate.
condensate. You've got some exhale breath
Yeah,
condensate.
you've got airway
you do
lining
have some-
fluid as well.
You do have some gas that your
Chemtrails.
body produces
But
when you exhale.
we did. It's widely known that carbon dioxide will turn lime water milky, which is lime water is calcium hydroxide. Now, we found out through quite a number of different tests with lime water, and that is lime water will only turn milky in the presence of an alkaline. Okay, so if you use something like sodium hydroxide, for example, it will turn, and you add it to lime water, it will turn lime water milky. If you add an acid to lime water, it will neutralize it, and it won't go
Milky.
won't go milky at all. It will stay clear. And if you've got milky lime water and you add an acid, whether it's vinegar or whatever, it will turn clear. Okay. Now, we found out online, the good thing about the internet, you can get hold of lots and lots of information. It's wonderful. But we found out that carbon dioxide is allegedly an acid gas. So we're thinking, hold on a minute. If carbon dioxide is an acid gas, how then can it turn lime water milky? So we see guys and they've got a straw and they've got lime water in a glass and they're blowing through the straw. The lime water turns milky. People do this at school, and then they say to you, once you've done it, well, the reason why the lime waters turn milky is because your breath,
It's the carbon dioxide.
it's the carbon
you're breathing
dioxide
out.
that you're breathing out, because we breathe in oxygen and we exhale carbon dioxide. But it's not because of that. It's because of something else.
What did we?
I can't remember what we arrived at, but
Because what they do also, one other test they do with that is that they look at the pH level of water. So you can get a glass of water, put a pH paper in it, take the reading, and then blow through it, blow into the water.
blow into water through a straw.
First of all, then get another pH paper, dip it in. It's meant to be more acidic.
And they say that's carbonic acid.
Yeah, they say that's carbonic acid, but that's a load of poo.
Absolutely, that's a load of poo-poo.
Because when you actually breathe out, your breath is a lot warmer, and it's that temperature change.
It's the temperature change,
which changes
the pH, because
level.
we found out that temperature affects pH.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you've got all of these little kind of like demonstrations that
Giveaways.
people show to you that
Tricks.
to try and like justify that we breathe out CO2, or there's oxygen in water, or whatever, or you need oxygen to rust and all this lot. A lot of the time they're tricks to get you to think.
It's incredible
certain
after
way.
all these experiments, after all this going to school, after all this, it's a load of rubbish.
Yeah, basically,
yeah.
it's a load of rubbish.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah,
but
sorry to burst your
sorry,
bubble.
yeah, absolutely.
The
I
thing
mean,
is, you only know what it is because you've done your own experiments. So a lot of people have to do these things to know that everything they've told us is a lie.
But one of the things is that if people listening went and got some calcium hydroxide and wanted to turn it cloudy, someone might, and if they're not getting the results, mainstream would say, you're not doing it right.
absolutely, yeah.
It's your fault.
But you are doing it right. It's just that the information they're telling you is rubbish, and you're doing it right, but they're just trying to convince you that you're doing it wrong. Do you understand? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Did that make sense?
Well, they don't want us knowing the truth, do they? Completely.
Well,
It's
well,
like
living in fantasy land.
Sorry, I was going to say it's like Neil deGrasse Tyson and Bill Nye, isn't it? You know, they want you to believe what is just total fabrication. Yeah.
Well, a lot of it is that it's all about being an authority over the person. They want to have all the answers. So we're told we breathe in oxygen, we breathe out carbon dioxide. We're just told that because we're led to think that they have all the answers. When there's a crisis or where there's something that's unexplained, they have the answers.
Yeah,
not us.
We're supposed to, we're supposed to look to the authority.
We look up. We're supposed to look up to them. But if everyone sort of like turned this way,
look the other way,
other way, we're not interested.
Because the thing is that each of us have our own sovereignty in our, in our own lives, as it were, and it's a big shame.
Heat.
It's a big shame. Yeah. It's a big shame that so many people give up. They surrender their sovereignty to other people.
Yeah.
And society doesn't encourage people to have their own sovereignty over themselves, so that they can make decisions, good decisions about their life. They can make informed decisions and informed choices, which are going to benefit them, for their whole life, it's just the society we live in. It could be a lot better, obviously, but unfortunately, it's the way it is. It's pitiful, but hey, the worst thing is we're 2018.
David set up a trust fund, sort of, in a sense. I hope he doesn't mind me saying it like this. It's getting around this stupid law we've been put in, and the fact that he was explaining exactly that we're our own sovereign people and we need to claim ourselves back. And
but you can do this. This is the thing. I mean, at the end of the day,
because the law allows that. The law of this country allows
absolutely
that to happen.
I mean, look, I'm sure we've discussed this before, and that is, when you have your Lord Mayor's parade, when you have a council street festival or event, don't turn up.
Yeah.
Don't pay your council tax, pay your, obviously, the money, because that's all they want from you, but apart from that, that's it. Forget all about them. Get on with your own life.
Yeah.
I mean, it's it's the best thing you can do. It's the best going. But I know people who go into their council, and I'm thinking, why?
We're starting to have hangouts. People like us are starting to have hangouts. Hopefully, this sort of flat Earth movement, the whole thing, because flat Earth to me doesn't just cover what we're living on; it's everything. Because everything seems to be a lie. Everything, the matrix of lies. But we're starting to do that, aren't we? Obviously, in a sense, YouTube must love it because there's many more people on YouTube now. I mean, flat Earth is one of the biggest things that people are looking into, but they won't be honest about that. But it's true.
Well, the one good thing about YouTube is that fewer people are watching telly.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about television, I mean, I watched the other day. I watched a small clip of Darren Nesbitt and I can't remember who else. Who was on This Morning with
Philip Schofield.
early in this month? Philip Schofield.
Nesbitt,
it's Gary John.
Darren Nesbitt. I saw them on there, and like I'm thinking to myself,
three normal guys.
It's three. It's just there's three normal guys.
What's really stupid about that? Fern and that, right? They already had Mark Sargent on a few months ago talking about flat Earth, and yet they sat there going, "Oh, flat Earth, no!" as if they'd only just heard about it that very day to come on this chat. They've known about it. They had Mark Sargent on. So I just
sure, yeah, but it's all. The point we're trying to make
television.
It's mainstream television. They all live in this little dream world. But you've got three people on the show who are just down to earth, no
Airs or
BS,
graces.
no airs or graces, saying it as it is. Do you know what I mean? Well, we're not sure what's up in the sky and how the sun works and all this lot. You know, we're just being human beings. That's all we are. You know, and then you've got you see, they show up Philip Schofield and they show up the other person, whoever it was, Holly Willoughby. You know, they show them up to being something that they're not. They're showing them to be pretentious.
Mm.
You know, they're showing them not to be human, to be living in this little dream world. You know, this is the trouble with flat earthers, with society, because flat earthers don't live in a dream world. You know, and I'll get back to my point earlier. You know, we'd like to see proof. We don't want to live in a belief system. I don't want to live in a belief system. You know, I'd like to live so that, you know, I know things. You know, I don't want to believe that this is going to happen or that's going to happen or whatever. I don't want to believe that.
Live in reality.
Yeah, I want to live in reality. And, you know, this society that I'm living in is kind of a hindrance to me actually living in a reality, if you know what I mean. Living my reality.
Everything you do isn't fantasy. And you're looking at everything that you're looking at, the television, live vision, the whole lot, it's all fantasy.
It's a dream. It's a portrayal of life and reality that's not true.
And it doesn't affect you one
and
little
it doesn't
bit.
affect me one little bit. You know, I grew up watching television, and, you know, all the time I've been alive, you know, not one news story has affected me one bit. Not one news story that I've watched has affected me in my life. So what's the point? Why should I be watching something that's not going to affect my life? It's just a waste of time, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, and yet I know loads of people who I've got to watch the news at 9.
Oh, wow.
Got to watch them. You can't miss it.
Can't miss the news.
And you think, why?
Yes,
None of the news is going to affect you one bit.
No.
It's crazy.
And
Absolutely.
all that's there is to keep frightening you or making you so numb, you're never going to believe anything anyway.
Yeah, but
it's the dependency. Why should someone, even some you know, people who lead okay of lives, got to watch the news?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Why do they have that mentality?
Why? It's because they're living in the globe society, aren't they? And
because a lot of it is only because it means they've got something to talk about
to other people. Oh, did you see the news last night?
Oh, isn't it a shame?
Oh, yeah. Oh, that girl, who died. Oh, that was
You
terrible.
just hate it when they say, well, it's true because I saw it on the television.
Well, there's that. But
it's a talking shop, isn't
you'd
it?
be surprised. It's like when you go to work. Whenever anyone goes to work, what do people talk about? What do their work colleagues talk about when they're in work? TV's one of them.
CRAP.
Oh, did you watch EastEnders on the telly last night?
Oh yeah, wasn't it good?
Yeah, I know. It's bullshit.
It's rubbish. I mean, you know.
Can I just say something else very quickly?
I'll see Britain's Got Talent. Oh, he was good, wasn't he? Oh, I really liked it when he got up and he jumped up and he did a somersault and then he bent over and then his trousers split. Did you see that?
Oh, yeah.
That was really funny. Yeah, but it's for a lot of people. It's a way of communicating.
No.
TV provides a platform for people to communicate, because without that, unfortunately, you know, they'd find it very hard to communicate with other people. You know, it's this society we live in, you know, because people do find it hard to communicate.
I'll just say that Martin Leakey's in the chat room, so it's oi 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 to you guys.
Hi, Martin.
Hi, Martin. Yeah.
Oi oi oi. Oggy oi oi.
I liked Max Boyce. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, no, well.
And to the whole of the chat room that are watching.
Yeah, I was just going to say hello to the entire chat room and, of course, to Martin Leakey. Oi, oi.
Is that how you pronounce his surname?
Yeah, Leakey.
Leakey.
I'm sure I called him Lie
But-
Cake. I know it hasn't got an A in it, but I didn't know how to say it. It was when someone was talking about his name, and I thought, oh, that's how you say it. Yeah.
But yes.
Back to the television bit. It's awful, really, because you're right. Everything. Look what they're putting in front of us. They're putting things like Jeremy Carr, which is all about lies, deceit, affairs, breaking up, arguing. You've got the news full of lies. We've had nuclear bomb threats. We've had
Some of it's real.
Well, at least, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
adverts are chained one way to make you buy or die, and then you've got everything is just they're running the show, and people don't realise they're totally hooked by a fantasy.
Absolutely, yeah. But to be honest with you, I think a lot of people get to a point where they realise that it's all rubbish, because you see, a lot of people are conditioned from a young age, obviously through their education, and as you get older, that conditioning just wears away because it can't compete with your natural instincts and your natural ability to be human. Because it's part of your nature to be human, not to be some kind of conditioned by society, freak or whatever, robot.
And as you get older, you tend to look more people.
Absolutely, than, of course, yeah.
Wow, look at that nice sports car. Wow, look at that nice suit he's wearing. Wow, look at her arse.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
You look at people in a completely different way.
The one thing that really makes me kind of like, well, I do find amusing in certain respects, and you've got to ask yourself, does advertising actually work? You walk around your town, you see all these billboards, these advertisements on buses and all this lot, but does anyone take notice of them? I mean, I don't think they do.
They may not consciously, but it's because all these messages are subconscious messages, the subliminal ones, the way that they even use the television for that. It's subliminal. It goes into your psyche.
I think you're right there. I mean, we do pay attention to them because, I mean, well, I look at them, I read them and think, what's that, But I think I'm not, of course, going to go out and buy a pair of shoes because I see them on the side of a bus, but I'm aware of them, obviously. It's other people that aren't.
Yeah. Well, the shoes could be called Day Rider.
Very funny.
Oh,
no, but I mean, the point I suppose I'm making, and that is, I mean, I see a lot of advertisements everywhere, but, even though I take notice of them, like on buses and stuff. Oh, look, there's a new Mowgli film, for example, it doesn't affect me in the sense that I'm it's going to affect my behavior, or I'm going to go and watch the movie, or I just accept it for rubbish.
That's because you're looking at it differently. I mean, long gone are the days where I go shopping and I look at the t-shirts. I'm always looking at other things. Or look at the sun, look at those clouds, look at those chemtrails. I'm always looking up now.
Yeah, sure. You get a bad neck. Now, that's one of the reasons why I don't like air shows. It's because you always...
No.
It's bad. You get a bad neck.
At things like that, and a lot of people either are numb, dead, or not looking, or so caught up with, because this is what they've done. They've put in this thing called subversion and kind of communism, and so breaking up families, mentally, emotionally, and probably physically as well, all around the world, displacing the people, having all these fake wars. It just goes on and on. Everybody's stuck there. No one's thinking. No, like you say, no one's communicating,
absolutely. But I think it's surprising that one of everyone goes to school and has an education. We're taught English. I think English language or English is one of the things that people ought
reading,
to
writing,
learn.
and arithmetic.
But one of the things people don't learn when they're at school, and that's communicating with other people. Communication is so important, and yet we're not taught that in schools. Our education, people just don't realise that education doesn't half fail them. Or really, let me reword that. People just don't realise how much education fails them.
Could be so much better.
It could be so much better.
It's not actually the school's responsibility on the welfare of the children like that. It is the parents, but so many families are struggling or problems going on or whatever it is, that the school is the one place where a child is there for many hours of their life, and the teachers often know what's going on in the children's lives because they tell someone, and sometimes it's a teacher, they're so upset what's happening at home. But I always think now, when I looked at my children going through, why can't schools have even 1 hour a week about teaching the children about being nice to each other, being kind to each other, respecting each other, and actually having one lesson, even an hour a week, talking about these.
They have an agenda. They have this flipping, what's it called? Curriculum. Learn this, like you said before, the 3 R's, reading, writing, and arithmetic. you know, learn this shit. And that's
Wasn't
exactly what it is.
one of the R's rubbish?
Yeah, but think
Yeah,
about
oh, yeah, sorry. 4 hours, is it?
4 hours, yeah.
There's probably more. I'm sure there are.
but think about
But
this.
it's just total indoctrination. That's all it
No,
is. And it's
absolutely,
like it's only like recently that people can do things for themselves, and because of the internet, all of this like technology and all of this like information can be switched back and forth lightning fast. You know, and people can
Yeah,
do years of research in a matter of hours. What would take 40 years ago, it would take years to do. It just takes
But one of the problems with with the it's great having the internet. You can learn so much, research lots of information. You can do so many things on the internet. But
hey guys, I've got a question for you.
Don't interrupt him, Karen. He was going to say something then.
Oh, go on then. Sorry.
One of the problems, Peter.
Oh right, yeah. You can research so much information. You can do so much online. You can do this. You can do that. You can do this. You can do lots of stuff online.
Okay.
But one thing that you're forgetting is that you're forgetting yourself. All the while you're down there reading up information, looking at this, looking at that, looking at this, you're forgetting yourself as a human being.
Yeah, that's the hard part, and that's finding where do you find out information about yourself?
Where do you find information about yourself?
Yeah, they don't teach you at school how to be yourself,
how to find
who you are as an individual.
About an hour a week. Maybe not the older ones, but the younger children, if they had an hour a week telling the children respect each other, be kind to each other, communicate with each other.
And that's where meditation comes in as well.
Yeah, Karen, just that one thing to think about with that, which is where society fails in some ways. Well, is that
could be better.
How can you teach a child to be respectful, to be kind, to be this and to be that,
virtuous
or whatever, when their parents aren't like that? That.
I mean, the school's never going to make the children, but wouldn't it be nice if they were actually talking to the children like that?
There's probably ways.
We've said, like you just said, how can you have that happen? Well, it is be the change you want to see. That's how you make your children change.
Oh, sure.
You have to be the change you want to see.
Yeah,
that's the only way it will happen. It will
spread. Children won't know that, though, will they, Astral? You know that because you're an adult, and the fact that what you've gone through yourself, getting to today.
If children learn from their parents, which obviously do, don't they? They look at their parents, and that's what they mimic, and they mimic society, they mimic cartoons as well. But if we are the change we wish to see, and we're good, then our children will obviously look up to us as good parents, and they would mirror what they see. I hope.
Yeah, just that reminds me of Justin Welby, because the Archbishop of Canterbury, it's quite a noble man. He's reached quite a high position,
absolutely,
in the country, but he had a messy childhood.
Yeah, messy. Yeah, had to wear a bib.
Can we talk about that in a second? Because obviously that was part of this video that you put out last night. But Jay Dreamers put a question, if you know who he is. He has a channel on YouTube. He had a question. What plans action will the truth community develop in order to completely regain our freedom or to take control completely away from the world rulers? What do you think?
Well, if you're asking me for my personal opinion, I think that the best thing that any person can do is find it within themselves.
Absolutely, yeah, that's good. Yeah, that was a good answer. That was lovely. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, absolutely. Find it within themselves
because you've got more chance of success within yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I think there should be more.
I'm not saying that it can't be done collectively, but it's a bigger battle.
Yeah, you'd be amazed how much if you put someone who knew their own mind, okay, you put them in a room filled with people who didn't know their own mind, they'd stick out like a sore thumb.
Yeah.
But it's surprising how that person will rub off on the other people, and that person will set such a wonderful example for the other group members that they'd want to be like that person.
I suppose a lot of it is all about setting examples.
Absolutely,
like
yeah,
we were
of
talking
course.
about earlier, setting examples with parents. But there's no reason why, if you're a flat earther and you know your own mind, you know what you want.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
suppose what it is he's put Jay Dreamers has put in. Well, I've got it now. We haven't got a plan, but a lot of people want to know, like, if we woke up tomorrow and we were living in, it was flat on the television, then what happens?
Well, yeah. Now this is a good question. You see, the thing is,
then starts the inquiries. Why and who, and all right. Well, what about all the money? And well, if you're one of those, you're just lying. You're obviously not a astrophysicist, blah blah blah, because of or whatever.
Well,
I don't want to put any astrophysicist down. No, I'm just saying. Talking.
Well, not even Brian Cox.
Well, I mean,
top name.
I think personally that if people woke up tomorrow morning and it was all over the news, it's been realised that we're all lying to everyone, and the Earth's flat and all this lot. People would want to see change. And I think there would be obviously a struggle to. Well, how are we going to change things? How are we going to change the education system? How are we going to change this? How are we going to change that? Blah, blah, blah. But I think in my understanding, it would be a better position for everyone to be in, because they won't be living in this dream world, this world where they think the Earth's a spinning ball and there's this universe and they can find salvation in space, in Mars, in SpaceX and all this rubbish.
That's probably
people would be living real lives with real people.
If that were to happen, what you'd see is probably more participation by people in the society they live in. They'd be having more of a say.
Yeah, I think
how they want the education. How do they want their homes built? How do they want their streets? How do they want to use money?
Can I just I'd really like to say this, and that is we've been living in Chester for
12 years.
12 years, and in 12 years we've not had one letter from our council asking us anything about anything.
Yeah.
How sad is that?
How are you finding Chester? You've been living here for 12 years.
What changes would you like to see?
What changes would you like to see?
Are you happy with how this is run? How's that's run?
Yeah.
Blah blah blah.
Nobody asks us. Nobody asks you.
Nobody asks you. The very people who live in the very towns and cities that these councils run, they don't ask their residents what they want.
Pete, is there a information centre in Chester? I'm sure there isn't there. Like one of those little kiosks.
Yeah, there's a little office,
with maps.
Probably staffed by this old lady. Hello, can I help you?
Umbrellas, maps, and lollies. And a teddy bear with "I love Chester" on its t-shirt.
It is a little frustrating, though, isn't it? When we've got, like, some of us, it could be many years from childhood, always knowing now, and all this information, and nothing seems to be changing. But you see it more if a lot more of us kind of turned our backs on all that and started doing things together, then that would all become irrelevant.
Well, you see, the thing is, at the end of the day, think about it logically. And I watched the royal wedding, only because of work. But I watched the royal wedding, and there's Prince Harry. He's in the horse-drawn carriage with all the people wearing fancy dress, on horseback, and they're going round. All the crowds are waving their Union Jack flags and all this lot. And I think to myself, if nobody was there, they wouldn't be doing it. It would just be a normal wedding, like anyone else's wedding. What makes these people so special? And that the only thing that makes these people's weddings so special is the people who are there giving up their sovereignty to these people. I can understand the reasons, for example, why we have a royal family. I can understand that, a lot of people in this country need to have a good example being set. And I feel that the royal family does do that. They show to people how to behave, how to be civilized. If you took them away, you wouldn't have that. You wouldn't have that for people to identify with. And a lot more people in this country would be more uncivil. They'd be acting like animals.
You don't see them part of being this game that they've put us in.
No, well, to be honest with you, I mean, I tend to think that in order for you to have the structure that you have, you know, I mean, when they first started off, obviously, it was all might is right. You know, they used their own might. They, you know, and they used force to get what they want. You know, but over the years, you know, their whole role has changed, and it's you know, I find that, you know, to live in a civilized society. I mean, think about this logically. You know, if you don't
think it's wasting a lot of people's money and you know,
I'm not
controversy around them.
Well, I don't really want to go down that road as such, because, you know, we could go on for hours about that. But think about this, okay? I've been out on the streets of Chester, okay, talking flat Earth. Now, that wouldn't have happened 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago.
Why?
It just wouldn't have happened. Whereas now you're seeing people who are actually starting to come out, like me, people like Del up in Scotland, John Smith Globely, you know, he does it on a regular basis, going from town to town, and people like yourself doing YouTube channels, Martin as well doing his YouTube channel. We've had the Flat Earth Conference, we've had TV coverage this morning. You know, more and more people are being exposed to this flat Earth. Yeah. Okay, more and more people. Things are changing an awful lot.
That's awful lot. That's something that all flat earthers can agree on.
And that's something, absolutely. Every flat earther has got to agree on that. No one can say that, no, that's rubbish. Things are changing. People's attitudes are changing. I mean, to be honest with you, think about it realistically. We're living in 2018, okay? 2018. We've all been to school. We've all been taught that the Earth's a spinning ball. And yet there's people like me going out in the street. There's people like Del going out in the street. There's people, John Smith Globely, Vic. There's the Flat Earth Conference. There's yourselves doing a YouTube channel. So many people talking about flat Earth. This is happening. This is real. Yeah. Think about it. Things are changing. There's even people who, I believe Meghan, whatever her name is, I can't remember, but even her best friend or whoever is a flat earther. There are people up in the higher echelons of society who are flat earthers. It's spreading. This thing is getting bigger. People are starting because I think at the end of the day, you know, people reach a certain point where they've heard of flat Earth, okay, but it's only until they reach a certain, say, event in their life that they'll actually go and research it, even though they may have thought at the time when they first heard it, oh, that's all rubbish. That is, you know, it's all just baloney. Of course, the Earth's a globe. But as soon as they hit, say, rock bottom, or they've hit a crisis in their life, or some kind of event or whatever, then all of a sudden they'll get a little sign from life flash up on the screen or whatever.
YouTube
recommended by YouTube, a video, flat Earth. They'll watch it. They'll be drawn to it, and they're more likely. That's the time. That's their time for them to discover flat Earth.
And one important thing to remember, and that is fewer people are watching mainstream television.
Absolutely, of course, yeah.
And B, more than 50% of adults in this country are single people.
Absolutely. So they've got a lot of time on their hands,
which means that more and more people will be, how can I call it? Will reach a point in their life where this society isn't working for them.
Isn't working for them. Absolutely. A lot of people are becoming dissatisfied with this society, the globe society. You know, a lot of people, when you're young, you tend to think, oh, wow, they've got so much to offer. They've got movies, they've got TV, they've got fast cars, they've got this, they've got that. But as you get older, you begin your whole perceptions on society change, and you start to realise that this society hasn't really got anything to offer at all. All it can offer you is a job.
For a lot of people.
For a lot of people.
Can I just say something, guys?
Yeah.
people pop in our chat room. They do, you know, other channels. But in the chat room now, other channels, you've got Jay Dreamers, you've got Martin Leakey, and Hoary Sheet is here. Hoary Sheet Show is in the chat room, as well as the lovely people in the chat room. So there you go, watching and listening to you guys.
They're on next, aren't they?
Yeah, you see, the thing is, this is the whole point we're trying to make about, like, for example, TV.
Can I just say hello to everyone in the chat? I just want to say hi to them. Sorry to interrupt you there again, Pete.
Yeah, we'll do it. But you know, I saw the clip of this morning with Gary John and Darren Nesbitt on there and stuff like this. But you know, people are failing to realise that, you know, people aren't watching television anymore. They're not. They're just. Everyone is online. Everyone is online. Everyone is looking for new information. They're looking for that. You know, people are tired. New inspiration. They're tired of the rubbish that's on the drivel on the television, the pretense, the showmanship, the rubbish.
They're tired of the Labour and Tory. They're the same. They're all the same.
Also, every year,
they
politicians say
say
the same thing.
Time and time
and nothing
year
changes.
In, year out, nothing changes.
Absolutely. People aren't reading local newspapers because they're all rubbish. The same old stuff in there. You got bits about children in school, pupils of schools. You've got a business getting a new award. You've got things that are happening on a local level that don't affect your life one little bit.
Yeah.
People are becoming disinterested with the very society that's supposed to hold them together. Think about it. What's happening with this? What we're seeing essentially is a breakdown of society. Look at the shops, the high street shops. A lot of them are closing down.
I think we are having this sort of a cosmic shift. I really do. You know, when we're talking about the change of from the age of Pisces to the age of Aquarius, I think this is truly what's going on, and people are becoming disinterested with TV and with other shit drivel and stuff that's thrown down our throats. You know, and like just, I mean, go outside, look at your nature. Look, I mean, it's amazing to just go outside and look at your nature. That in itself is enough.
Hopefully that's the one thing that people are learning now, is to be much more in love with nature. I mean, look at trees. They're amazing in themselves.
I quite agree.
What it all means, what they mean, the whole thing.
Yeah, sure. But when you think about it, humans are quite amazing, aren't we? You know.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, we are really.
You know, I mean, you know, I think, you know, everyone. The worst thing is that we grow up and we all walk past trees every day.
Well, we all walk past
you know.
people.
So, but we all walk past other people. You know, I think the only concern with the internet is that we're getting to a point where everyone's down the internet. People are becoming a lot more insular to a degree because they're communicating via the internet. But you know, I think there will come a time where even the internet will become.
People get fed up.
People will get fed up with the internet. So we'll get to a point where people will want to get to know other people. People will start realizing that they are human and that there is a need in them to socialize and to be part of other people and other people's lives. You know, there's so many, a growing problem I'm aware of in lots of people's lives, especially older people, and that's loneliness. There's so many old people in this country who are genuinely lonely. A lot of people don't. As soon as you get old, you don't want to know. When I was watching the,
sorry, as soon as you get old, this society doesn't want to know you.
When I was watching the royal wedding and the Queen turned up with Prince Philip, I got the impression that no one was interested in them. They came in, sat down, but nobody was actually interested in them because they're old. That one of the things that annoys me about this society, and that is old age is swept under the carpet, it's forgotten about. People don't want to talk about it. People, you know, when you read your local rag, for example, your free paper, you'll never ever, very rarely will you see something about old people. You've got young people in schools. You'll see that. You'll see rugby sports teams, you know, in the back pages. You'll see all this kind of stuff, but you'll never see old people.
Very few, very occasionally.
Very, very, very rarely. And there is a bias in this society about being old, getting old, our lifespan, being human. Another thing that annoys me about this country, and that is we tend to overlook and don't ignore the very processes of being human, like aging, for example.
We tend to overlook and ignore.
Ignore it. We ignore it. We overlook it, and it's disgraceful. It's absolutely shocking. How do you think? And yet we're all going to get old. This is the worst thing. We're all going to get old.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
we're all going to face that time at some time. And are we making it better for us? No.
No,
it's pitiful, really, when you really do think about it. You know, it's about time that people do start changing attitudes, and they do start. And I really do hope that Flat Earth, as part of this shift, will help
bring about change.
Because, you know, it's about time something happens. You know, I mean, I'm not bothered whether the Queen's in power, the monarchy have power, or this or that. I couldn't give a baboon's backside.
Because all we want is just people to be genuinely happy in their lives.
Absolutely, yeah. That's not much to ask, is it? I mean, we're 2018. We live in Great Britain. We don't live in Little Britain or Small Britain or Minor Britain or whatever. You know, 2018, we're one of the wealthiest countries in the whole world. And yet, you know, when you look at the people on the street, you know, they're very unhappy. I'll go down to Chester.
Well, a lot of people
are very unhappy. Yeah. And it's shameful. You know, I'm ashamed to be British because I live in a country where, you know, the people that I work with, you know, could be a lot more happier in their lives. You know, it's what
that's the fantasy they've got everybody living in. And to be honest, you know, like it's a generational thing. I mean, my parents, who are now in their 80s, are this the biggest indoctrinated generation, because on our research, we've kind of worked out that it was the 1960s when they actually turned us into a ball. I mean, as the turn of the century into the 1900s, you could still go to prison. You know, obviously it was being talked about, but the majority believed we were in flat Earth. We were going very electric. Everything was electric and going really well. First, Second World War, which is a bit like what they're doing not as bad as Syria, I know, but they had to destroy our infrastructure. Most of Europe's gets destroyed. We come out of that. We've got television coming. We've got oil, petrol.
Lots of jobs, didn't it?
Got going to the moon. You know, we've got time and day savings. In the 1960s, they turned us into a ball. So my mum's generation, who've got the television, those are the hardest ones to understand. Hopefully the younger ones now have got to hope children.
Yeah, well, it's good because the internet is one of the major revolutions that's happened over the past few years, you know, and because of the internet, you know, we're starting to see a lot more liberally minded kind of person develop from it, you know, because
I think it's better when you turn the television off, because that's just another arena, that's just another game to keep you clued into all the things they want you to be noticing and watching. Once you turn that off, then you start thinking, feeling, questioning.
Absolutely, of course, absolutely, and you start doing things that are more constructive in your life.
Yeah. So if anyone's listening here in the chat, one of the best things you can ever do in your life is get rid of your television.
Absolutely, of course, yeah.
Get rid of it.
I mean,
I'll tell you what, I'll ask a question then. I mean, I watch a tiddy bit of television. I can't say but I just don't. What I mean is I don't watch it, is that it might be for that half an hour when I wake up and have my breakfast on whatever it is. It's something like that. Before, I used to watch all the soap operas, you know, like I was watching Jeremy Kyle. You know, I was doing all that now. So asking the chat room, how many people are still glued to their television, or how many of them have really turned it off, go on their computer, go on Hangouts, go and research? Just asking. So asking the chat room that one. It'll take a couple of minutes to come through.
Sure. It's a bit like the phone lines.
Bliss says no TV here for 20 years.
What was that?
Bliss says she hasn't had, or that person says they haven't had a telly for over 20 years.
Same here. 1995.
She got rid of her TV license. Flat Earth Dude says no. Caroline says, oh, well, I'm not sure what Caroline, I think, is talking about something else. Yeah, they're all saying no.
Yeah, no, it's one of the best things. People kind of like. I mean, people need to get rid of it because they're people, the worst thing is there's no. You couldn't really call it entertainment, could you?
Well, no, not really. Like Max Bygraves.
Absolutely. I found out Max Bygraves died in 2012.
You think you're watching EastEnders and all that as a soap opera, but they haven't realised the whole of the television is one great big soap opera.
No,
absolutely. And if you're always being nosy and wondering what your neighbours are up to, I mean, soap operas next door, isn't it?
Yeah, you've only got to look through your window.
Just open your window. Oh, he's back again. Quick.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah.
She's pulled her knickers up.
Oh, dear.
Do you think that if, obviously, you've got your own channel and all the things you do, but do you think you would have been so into this anyway, what you're doing? Your little scientists there doing your experiments.
Well, it's a bit. I think we because we got into 2015. We got into Flat Earth, and I think we got to a point where we thought, nothing could really dissuade us from thinking the Earth's not flat. Is that right? Did I say that right?
So, well, you and me are aware of the amount of mistrust in society,
absolutely, of course,
and the amount of BS that society promotes.
Absolutely, yeah.
And when we come across Flat Earth, we thought, oh right, yeah,
of course, it's just simple, isn't it? But we reached the point where we thought, nothing can sway us away from Flat Earth, So in our understanding, we've tended not to kind of like we've tended to kind of like stop doing videos on Flat Earth because what's the point? We know it's flat. We don't need to. I
mean, I know because we talked about this in our.
So we ended up going. Yeah,
we talked about this in our last hangout, and that is, it's good to still promote Flat Earth.
Yeah, we do it occasionally, but not that often.
But the thing is,
it's a bit like you're going on past that now.
Well,
a lot of people have decided that.
What we find is that it's kind of regurgitating.
I mean,
information, and you think, there's so much information out in this society that is just so wrong. Flat Earth is probably one big thing.
So in a sense,
can I?
Gay Dreamer's question, because he said, "What are people going to do?" Okay, it may not be on a big movement, but you've already started it because you've turned around from all that, and you're doing your own experiments. So you've moved on.
You see, the thing is, we've ditched the TV. I mean, I play quite a fair amount of guitar, so I keep myself busy. And Peter does his own bit, but we get time in the evening, so we get time. Whereas a lot of people would be watching TV, we're kind of like doing things like playing around with pH paper and rust and wire wool and things, vacuums and all this kind of stuff.
A lot of it, we need to.
Plus, also we need material for the channel.
Yeah, we need to see a piece of information, like for example, these people like Cody's Lab. I don't know if you've heard of Cody's Lab, a YouTube channel with a guy who
into his science. He's got quite a lot of.
He's got about 1 million subscribers, and he puts a video out and he says water boiling in a vacuum, and water doesn't boil in a vacuum.
Yeah,
so that
absolutely
that led us on to doing. Looking at information about boiling, definition of boiling,
absolutely, yeah.
The way it's applied, and we do have a vacuum pump, and we did actually do.
And we found that essentially what you're doing is you're just extracting heat from water using a vacuum chamber.
Yeah, because a vacuum pump is an ideal way to reduce the temperature
of a substance.
And
that's how we realised how a refrigerator works.
Yeah.
This is the thing,
Do you want to explain that a little bit for people about the refrigerator? Because it's explaining what you're just, the whole thing.
If you have a glass and you connect it to a vacuum pump and you draw the air out, that liquid in that chamber, in that glass
Will
jar,
get colder.
will get colder.
Will get colder.
And they apply that principle.
Principle,
That
yeah.
when you take the air out of a liquid,
Or
it'll cool down.
or if you pass something through a vacuum,
Or you pass something through it where there's no air,
where there's no air,
it will get cold.
it will get colder.
And they apply that principle for when they make fridges.
When they make fridges,
Because in your freezer box, in your fridge, you got a coil of
you got
tubing,
an evaporator,
which is called an evaporator. And it's called an evaporator because of gas.
Here we go.
Here we go. This is where it goes. But
Condensates, doesn't it?
well, a substance
It
is
changes. It changes from liquid to gas state,
Oh,
or vice versa.
oh, sure. But we've got to, yeah.
It has to go through a what's it called? Oh shit, man!
Evaporator.
Yeah,
No,
sure.
Bottom of a fridge, clang, 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 clang.
refrigerant.
No, at the bottom of a fridge that goes clang, clang, clang.
compressor.
You have
Compressor. That's it. It goes through
Yeah,
a compressor.
Yeah,
And
you have.
the process presses it through, and it changes its form from liquid to gas.
Oh,
Goes
sure,
through the system, back again.
sure.
And it's
But
the same with heating, except it's reversed. So when
Yeah,
you have air condition will. Oh, sorry, I'm interrupting you.
no,
Forgive
you're
me.
doing fine. The only thing I was going to say, and that is, that does the refrigerant need to change from a gas to liquid? This is the thing, because the vacuum is more important because we extracted the heat from water using a vacuum pump. We
Right.
realised that
You've raised a good question there, right? And the perfect person to ask will be my brother, because he has his own air condition company.
yeah, but
And
they all work on the same principle.
Yeah, exactly.
They all use vacuum. So when you've got this pump, okay, and allegedly in a refrigerator, it pumps around this refrigerant, okay, a liquid, pumps it round. It goes into a evaporator where the liquid expands, okay. It expands in the evaporator because the pipe is wider than it was before as it was going up to.
Because it's also compressed.
It's also compressed, so it's really tight and tightly packed. Goes up to the evaporator where it expands. It basically takes away the heat from the icebox and absorbs it, and then moves and carries it basically back to the compressor, where it gets where it goes out goes through the compressor, and it comes back out through the condenser where it releases that heat. But you see, the thing is, our point of view is that that refrigerant doesn't really need to change from state to state. It doesn't need to change from a gas to a liquid, from a liquid to a gas. It could just remain as a liquid. Okay, because it's going through the vacuum chamber will instantly cool it down anyway. And the heat from the icebox will be drawn into it because of heat goes from warm to cold.
That is probably the process that happens then,
Yeah.
But what about the different gas types then? I mean, okay,
Well,
I don't know.
They only use. You see, what they do is, because you'll find that with refrigeration, a lot of refrigerators are used in different. Have different applications. They're used in different locations. Some places are more humid. Some places more colder. So you've got big storage refrigerators that can probably go down to -30. Freezers. You've got freezers as well. So they need to have some kind of refrigerant that will be able to withdraw or to attain those kind of temperatures within the freezer itself, for example, or fridge. If you're living out in a desert, for example, really hot desert, like where was that desert?
Atacama.
Like the Atacama, if you're living in the Atacama desert, one of the driest places on earth, you're going to need a refrigerator that's going to work really, that's going to have a very low melting point. Is that right?
Like a refrigerant.
Or the refrigerant, yeah.
Keeps your beer cold.
Absolutely, of course. But
Yeah.
because you don't want your compressor to pack up, you don't want your fridge just to break down. So, you need to have different kinds of materials as your refrigerant in order for it to work properly in those kinds of different environments. But it's so good to be able to have a better understanding on how the things work around us, because when you go to school, you're not told all this information in a very simple and easy to understand way.
Right.
I don't know why they make it complicated.
Yeah, exactly. I
Science
always used to say
complicates
that.
everything.
I always used to say that about physics.
Yeah. Well, I
I
mean,
don't
you've got
understand. I used to say, I
but-
don't understand. And she said, what don't you understand? I said, well, it's just so complicated. This, but and then that, and over there. What's it all mean?
yeah, I know, yeah.
Yeah, but the complexities, all the complexities do is to create jobs. Because if they put it in a very simplistic way,
You'd be repairing your own fridge.
basically, yeah.
True.
You know, you'd be repairing your own fridge. You wouldn't need to call out these guys. You'd be able to do it
We
yourself.
would all be growing our own vegetables, being our own doctors,
Yeah,
and
basically,
living
yeah.
for
Absolutely,
700 years and growing
absolutely,
to
because-
15 feet tall.
Yeah.
Because that's one thing. But now we've hit on one
That's
thing.
just one aspect, yeah, of it. You know.
Yeah, but we've hit on one thing that has an impact on our lives, and that's work and jobs.
Yeah, no,
Because
yeah.
when you go to I don't know, when you go somewhere, someone who's doing a job will have an impact on your life. It's like Pete here went to the local airfield.
Yeah, you'll love this one. This is a great one.
He went to the local airport, thought he'd take a photo because he saw a refueling vehicle.
Yeah.
So he thought, I'll take a photo of that because of old Jonesy. So stops the vehicle, gets out,
Camera out.
Guy comes along. Excuse me,
Can't do that.
can't do that.
Can't do that. And I'm thinking to myself, hold on a minute. All I wanted to do was take a photo. I had a nice shot of the back of this helicopter, and in front of the helicopter was this refueling lorry, van, And so I'm just about to click on the camera, and then this guy said, "No, you can't. You can't take photos. You can't take." And I'm thinking, why not? There's no sign that says I can't take photographs. And then he says to me, it's authorized area or restricted area." And I'm thinking, but that's beyond the gate. I'm this side of the gate. You get so much rubbish.
Yeah, but
it makes this person's job
worthwhile.
It gives that person a bit of
Meaning.
something to do in his job.
Bit of authority.
To be on the alert for someone who might, be a terrorist or something.
From the chat room, guys. But I just wanted to ask you something without sounding stupid. When they're talking about aeroplanes and they say the cabin's pressurized, so what does that mean then? Is that like in a vacuum?
No, it's just the cabin.
No.
The cabin's just filled up with
air. It's got air pressure inside it.
With air.
It's just like filling up your tire with air. It's just
You're inside the tire, yeah.
Because outside of the aircraft, the pressure is much less.
Yeah, that's why they probably use the term pressurize, because you have a difference of pressure inside the aircraft as you have outside.
Absolutely, yeah, of course, yeah. So it's super duper,
Whereas if the aircraft's on the ground, you wouldn't need to pressurize.
I went to just to add on to what Peter was saying about me at the airfield the other day. While I was there, I actually saw this guy who I'm sure worked there. So I stopped him and I said to him, do you know this thing that's been going on over the internet about these passenger jets not having fuel on them and then working by compressed air? And he said, "Oh, right, okay, blah, blah, blah." And I said, "Yeah, it's surprising, actually, when you think about compressed air, because compressed air, you can compress air to so much that it can reach temperatures of like plus probably 2,000 degrees centigrade. So you can imagine all this hot air being thrusted out the back of this jet turbofan, And he kind of like said to me, well, no, it doesn't work like that. No, I've refueled them. And then I said to him, because I'm thinking to myself now, I don't believe that at all. So I said to him, you do realise that aircraft can be defueled. But it was it was a very interesting kind of like interaction, because it made me think, maybe there is a lot of truth in it, you know.
Yeah, because when you think
Because
about
what was wrong with me taking that photograph?
because we've often thought, and that is why do you need to introduce fuel to a turbo fan when it's compressing the air through it to reach temperatures higher than the fuel can actually burn?
Absolutely, yeah, of course.
Doesn't make sense.
Yeah, because you can compress air to phenomenal
more than the fuel can burn.
more than the fuel can burn. So, you know, and they're only using kerosene, is it?
I don't know.
I'm sure it's kerosene.
Probably, yeah.
I think jet fuel.
So,
You know,
A lot of people have had a go at me because I can't see it, and I actually mirrored off I'm a moderator on a Facebook channel group, and this person showed this wing all smashed up. There was no tanks in it.
yeah, well, there you
wing.
go.
there was what all
There was
smashed
no
up.
tanks. There was a wing smashed up,
Oh, sure, yeah.
but there were no tanks.
Oh,
But-
the fuel tanks.
But
yeah.
they would say that it's the substructure of the wings that hold the fuel.
Yeah.
That's what they say. But we know that aircraft,
Oh,
for
of
those
course, yeah.
people who aren't familiar with the auxiliary power unit, an aircraft, a Boeing 747, if you ask someone, how many engines does a Boeing 747 have?
Yeah.
What would be your answer?
How many engines? 4.
Yeah.
Four.
Four.
Yeah, I was in Tesco's the other day, and I was talking to
Don't
some
they have
guy.
two? Don't they have just two?
Boeing
747.
747 jumbo jets.
jumbo
Don't
jets.
Do they have 4 engines?
Well, I was in Tesco's the other day, and I asked the guy who worked there. I said to him, how many? I said to him, how many? I asked him the same question. You know, how many engines does a jumbo 747 have? And I told him the answer, and he said, "Nah, get away, you're lying." You know,
Yeah,
but it's actually 5.
5. Yeah, Boeing
It's got
747.
5. The APU at the back. Everyone doesn't. A lot of people don't realise that there's an APU, an engine right at the back.
Auxiliary
aircraft.
power unit.
That's the
That's blowing
one.
out hot air.
But let's get the
I used to
point.
stand there in the wintertime if I was guarding a plane on the ramp. That's where you get nice and warm, nice and cozy it is. Put your head just below that little, just about my height, 6 foot.
Yeah.
Above.
But the point is that the APU supplies the compressed air for the turbo fans to start up.
The chat room have been answering 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 5.
No, it's 5.
It's 5. It's 5.
5.
But you see, once the turbo fans get going, the turbo fans do actually supply compressed air within the whole wings and the whole body to prevent frost, ice, forming within the wings and the body structure. Because when you look at the aircraft flying through the air at cruising altitude, say 33,000 feet, the air up there is cold as anything. Even Scott would have no chance. You know what I mean? And so the compressed air, the warm compressed air, helps to
keep the leading edge.
Keep the leading edge of the wings, for example, free from freezing over, so that all your flaps can work and all this lot. Because the last thing the aircraft wants is that the pilot presses a button to lower the flaps or whatever, and they won't budge because they're frozen up. So the compressed air is quite important, but you can understand that. These turbofans, it's more than possible that very, very, very little fuel is used. They definitely use fuel for the APUs. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, when you think about it, there's got to be an engine on board an aircraft that runs on fuel.
Absolutely.
But people are led to think that it's these 4 big engines that are under the wings. But there's this little one out the back, inconspicuous, nobody can see it, that delivers all the compressed air to the turbofans.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because those things under the wings, a lot of people would say they're an engine. They're engines, they are, but they're actually turbo fans.
They're not engines as such.
They're not engines. They're just high speed
Absolutely.
fans.
It's
That's
like
all they do
yeah.
is just spin round.
It's like rockets. A rocket does not have an engine. It has a thrust. In my understanding, it has a thrust generator because it generates thrust. You know, there's certain components in the propulsion system, as well as the thrust generator, that could be defined as being engines, like turbo pumps and all this kind of stuff. They can be defined as an engine, but the nozzle and the thrust that comes out, you know, the nozzle par is essentially a thrust generator, you know. But even rockets don't have engines. The language we use and the language that all these globe people use to kind of like justify their positions, justify their stance, is absolutely ridiculous a lot of the time, because it just skews the proper understanding of a situation. So, you know, you can see something as being blue when it's green, but you know that you think that it's blue and not green because of the words that you're using. Hope that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Sure. Anyway.
Actually, I have a question. Remember, I said I had a question for you. Thanks for that, by the way. I am in with you with the planes, by the way. I just can't see that they'd have thousands of gallons, even in smaller tanks, underneath, slugging around. We'd be definitely in a bomb.
Well, then,
a flying bomb.
Yeah, I think they probably they do have small tanks for the APU to fuel the APU at the back, because that needs fuel. But you know, I'm sure I said this before. That is, I'd need to see more information to actually say for definite what was what.
Yeah, but we are more
more
inclined to say that they don't use
really
a lot
crazy?
of fuel in these turbo
just
fans.
jumps on the bandwagon about being horrible. If you don't believe that what's happening about the compressed air bit, then they just say you're a bunch of idiots. But the thing is, they still don't realise that even if petrol was being used, the compressed air is there at the same time. They're working together. So, do you know what I mean? Like, no one brings in the compressed air side. They just say, "Oh, so stupid. Planes run on fuel."
Yeah, no, yeah, sure. Yeah, well, even
if the fuel is used, they're not talking about people. Just generally, the whole thing. No one understands that the compressed air is also helping that plane.
Yeah, well, when you think about it logically, I mean, compressed air is used in hydraulics. Okay, compressed air, like I've said, and that is, it can reach a higher temperature than what your fuel can burn at. You know, so the hot air that comes out the back of this turbo fan, you know, you can get it even hotter without even using fuel. You know, and it all depends on your RPM of your, you know, you've
got those vortex tubes.
You've got the vortex tubes, if you're aware of those. You've got which can reach. You can have out one end. You can have temperatures.
Well, you can have one end. I don't know if people have heard of a vortex tube, but it's a bit like a compressed air going into a tube, and it creates a vortex inside where, depending upon the flow and what's put in the center.
Yeah.
Of the.
So it's hard to describe without a diagram.
Air comes out one end hot, and the air comes out the other end cold.
Yeah,
and there's about 100-degree temperature difference
between the two. And the only difference with the compressed air, hot air that comes out of the hot air end is that the air's going like this around the inner walls of the tube. Whereas at the other side, it's probably just traveling through the middle.
Sorry, can you just explain that again? Where does it take the intake? Like, you know, I'm just trying to think how.
Well, so it's just got in the tube, somewhere in the tube, it's just got a hole, and the air is just kind of like compressed air is just
fed through
the hole, so that it basically hits, and it just gets deflected in either direction. But it starts this vortex going, where a lot of the air is just going around the inner edge, the inner walls of this tube.
But it's just regular tubing or special design or something, or what?
Yeah. You'll have to Google it, or
just YouTube.
Yeah, I will.
Just
Yeah,
YouTube
it sounds interesting.
tubes. But that, that it's surprising that a lot of people. I mean, there's also, if people want to check them out, and that's the fire syringes. Where you just get a syringe, put a bit of paper in, and you just whack it down. The plunger in the middle will go down, compress the air so much that the bit of paper inside will burn because it gets so hot. People don't realize.
Another example of how compressed air can reach high temperatures.
Compressed air can reach very, very high temperatures. And, they even use, we were talking about iron and before about the manufacture of iron in the blast furnace. They use hot air. Hot air is blown into this furnace, and it's reaching up into temperatures of 1800 degrees centigrade.
And
that is very, very hot. Now, they could increase those temperatures simply by using compressed air.
No, they may well use compressed air.
Yeah, they may well use compressed air because everyone should know that the more you compress something, whether it's a liquid, gas, or whatever, it'll get hotter. And if you're compressing something, an awful lot, So, I mean, it's.
So they need the cold air going into the wings then, because those engines are really hot, and all that heat will be coming out the back of the engine.
You do realise, Karen, that when you get above when you get above the clouds, the temperature up there is quite cold. So there's no problem there in freezing.
Well,
you were saying that they needed the warm air in the wings, but surely, how warm then? Because the engines, even if it's really cold up there, will still be making hot coming out the back.
Yeah, but you should have the hot
on the wing. I mean, it's actually right by the wing. So how come the wing don't melt?
Because it's not that. But you're talking about the airflow. The airflow is hot.
The airflow's hot. Have you? One thing you should do, and that is. Well, one thing I picked up on, if people really think that they use fuel within these turbofan engines, just look at the back of the engine after a plane lands. It's clean as a whistle.
No smoke.
Whenever there is fuel being burned, you'll always see soot or some kind of carbonated material around the back. A lot of dirt, grime, because the fuel is being burnt. Whereas in these aircraft, the back of the turbofan is very, very clean indeed. So getting back to your point, it's more than with the aircraft flying through the sky, it's quite easy for that hot air in that thrust column to actually leave contact with that aircraft very, very quickly.
As Astral said, it's very cold.
It's very cold in there. That's why you get more or less instant condensation forming as soon as that hot air meets that cold air.
Yeah, that's why you get the contrails.
That there's very, very hot air coming out.
Yeah.
You can probably just like where superheated steam. You can probably burn a bit of paper. If you put a bit of paper, and put it behind a jet engine, a turbofan engine, you could probably burn it, or it will definitely scorch.
Oh yeah.
Because it's so hot, and all they're doing is compressing the air. So
Oh right, yeah.
I've got to ask you this question because Marilyn's been waiting there, and I hope you don't mind me asking this. But she said, ask them what they think about the Grenfell Towers.
Well, here.
I don't. We've got to remember we don't follow news or we don't watch TV.
Yeah, but this is a good one. This one. Now we know someone who works for the fire station, fire brigade,
fire service 999.
Fire service 999. She's based in Birmingham. Now, the word was going round the fire service after the Grenfell Tower incidents that some fire crews were deployed and going to the Grenfell Tower because they wanted to help out.
Yeah, they wanted to. Bit like the 9/11,
A bit like 9/11, come on. Oh, there's a
all
fire
this patriotism. Come on, lads, we've got to help them out.
We've got to help them out. We've got to put that fire out.
We've got to save some lives.
But these fire crews were going to Grenfell. When they got there, they were turned away.
Mm.
You read what you want into that, but that was going around the fire service like anything.
Yeah, I can probably,
because if they wanted to put the fire out, they wouldn't have turned any fire crews away.
And also, when you think about it logically, that whole building would have had a water sprinkler system fitted anyway.
Yeah,
surely, you know,
yeah.
come on, we're 2018. We're not living in like caveman times or whatever.
You wouldn't get in this day and age, 2018. You would not get a whole. I don't know how many stories the building was, but you wouldn't get a whole story, a whole 40-story building just torched to the ground. You wouldn't get it just from a fire in one flat.
It's a bit unusual. What, I mean, one of the things a lot of people.
Wasn't it those tiles on the outside though that didn't help?
What tiles?
They had kind of like they were modernized and they had something put on the outside, and that's what caught fire.
Yeah, but that would be a fire retardant material.
The cladding around the building, whatever it was.
But the cladding would be fire retardant because of fire safety checks. You would not look at your sofas, your furniture you buy. It's all fire retardant material.
Of course, yeah.
It's 2018.
Absolutely, yeah. When you think about it, because I've always been led to think that whenever you see a fire, a lot of the time, the majority of the time, it's arson.
Can I just say as well, we have building regulations and they stipulate, and they have done for a long time, you have to have, we call it here BD 60, which means it has to be fire retardant for 1 hour, BD 120, 2 hours and so on.
Yeah,
because you have these fire shields within, your home. Yeah. Carry on, sorry.
That building was left to torch. Left to burn.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. It's most fires that I'm aware of throughout my whole life have been insurance jobs.
When has anybody
or some kind of redevelopment reason or something,
When has anybody known of a 30, 40-story building torched to the ground? I'm nearly 50 years of age and I've never known one.
It's strange, but I would say if anyone would really want to know what went on, then it's a simple matter of following some money trails, people.
Absolutely. Well, yeah,
redeveloping.
You got to look at who's on the council. You got to look at who's who's got a vested interest in the building.
Who's going to redevelop the land?
Absolutely. Maybe they want to build a McDonald's on there.
Because or a
retail park.
These things they feel that they don't like us talking about these things, but I'm just sorry for all the people that got hurt or whatever in it all.
But how do you know people got hurt?
Absolutely, yeah, of course.
How do you know that?
Said there was loads died, didn't they?
I've seen a report. This is going back a few years now. That was going to say that 2017 was a year where they were doing major emergency rehearsals, and this was from America to the UK to Africa to Asia. It was, across the plane.
Manchester bombing.
Yeah. I mean,
this was
really talk about those things.
Exactly, but this was mentioned years ago. And the strange thing is, freedom of speech. I'm only saying what my opinion is. I think it's strange that when they did these exercises, it's the same day that these disasters, so-called, happened. That's just so strange to me, and that's just my opinion.
Well, I'll always remember an interview I watched. This was in relation to the 7/7 bombings, and they interviewed a guy who was on one of the buses where the top got blown off, and he was so he just ran off the bus because he was just so frightened. Ran off the bus, ran up the road, and he saw this guy being tended to on the roadside who had been injured, and he's just gotten off a bus that had been blown up, and he'd actually seen
There's someone there already in bandages.
someone there with bandages,
and
and
you think, hey, up.
It's one of
There's
those
something wrong
times.
here.
It's one of those time warp things, isn't it? And it happens all the time.
yeah,
Apparently.
It
Like
all
this-
boils down.
I remember this kid who was on his bike and he got his camera because he couldn't wait to film and everything. And then, you know, another time he was already at school, you know, it's like, what? I mean, this time warp thing, it's just incredible, man. It really
Anyway,
is.
I don't like to. I know that we know that these things are usually lies, but it's best not to talk about these things. You know what YouTube are like.
Oh, sure.
oh,
yeah,
right,
sure.
yeah.
But,
But can I just
yeah,
say, right? Can I just say, there's one of these other questions I really wanted you to talk a little bit about. Was this bit about that air is water and water is air?
Oh, sure. Yeah. We've come to the conclusion that basically what it could be is that we could call it aether.
Yeah, the ether.
The aether. Yeah, it's surprising. We all hear about if anyone's heard the Malcolm Bowden Aries failure video, you know, where he talks about the aether. A lot of people have heard of the aether, but you know, if you go online and you go on Wikipedia, I mean, ask yourself what exactly is the aether.
Yeah, what is it?
And it's quite plausible. You know, I'm only saying it's plausible. I'm not saying it is or isn't. You know, it's just possible. It is possible that our stance on air, water being the same stuff, apart from one's liquid and one's gas.
One's wet, one's
Is
dry.
that it's essentially the ether.
Yeah,
You know, because you know
and it's possible. It's possible.
and it's just so in your face, and you think,
Yeah.
of course, you
Yeah.
know, it's just
It's because it's all about how you look at the world.
how you look at the world you live in, or the earth you're on.
It's very easy to look at water and think to yourself, water is water, and what is in water is in water. It's as if water is a medium in which things can move.
Absolutely, yeah.
Like if you're on a boat,
Right.
you're in a boat and you're sailing on the water.
Yeah.
If you had sewage, the sewage is moving in the
water.
water.
Yeah, fish move in
Fish
the water.
move in the water.
And it's the same with air. You know, we have odors, we have smells,
Smells
we have
move in
other
the air.
gases. You know, hydrogen, for example, hydrogen sulfide, sulfur dioxide, carbon dioxide. We have all these gases.
nitrogen dioxide.
Nitrogen dioxide. You know, we have all these gases that are moving around in the air. I mean,
But they don't form
part of it.
part of it.
Now, let's start from the beginning. We've all been told at school that that air has the constituents of 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen, some argon, CO2, some other trace gases, blah 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 blah. Now, okay, right. I mean, okay. So the thing I've always thought to myself is that okay, well, it's okay making those kind of claims. Okay, let's see some proof. Where is the proof that there's 21% oxygen in the air? Where is the proof? You know, where? Yeah, absolutely. Where's the proof? So what did we do? We kind of like, because when you look at, we're also told that we breathe in, okay, we exhale, and we breathe in. Our body absorbs 21% oxygen, okay, and we exhale carbon dioxide. Now we've mentioned earlier before that there's no evidence, there's no proof that we breathe out carbon dioxide. Okay, we've done our lime water tests, and they've given us
and the pH test.
and the pH test. They've told us that they've indicated that we don't breathe out CO2. When you look at fish in water, has anyone seen bubbles coming up from a fish's gills as it's swimming in the sea?
Apart from, don't mention
Anyone.
Don't mention any of
A
those,
fish allegedly.
those Pixar cartoons.
A fish allegedly is supposed to, it's gaseous exchange, okay? Gaseous exchange. A fish is supposed to take the oxygen from the water and it's supposed to release CO2, okay? But we never see those bubbles. Blub, 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 blub. We never see. You watch a diver underwater, scuba diver, you'll see the bubbles. Blub, 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 blub. They're the gas. Gases. See, we reached the decision that gases do not dissolve into liquids. It's a myth. We did a science myths, didn't we?
Yeah.
Just before Christmas, and we come to that conclusion that gases do not dissolve into liquids. You know, they'll always rise to the surface. These bubbles
can condense into liquids.
They can condense into liquids, but they will not dissolve into liquids. So there's no evidence that there's oxygen in the air. There's no evidence that fish actually absorb and breathe in oxygen. They take the oxygen from the water. There's no evidence that there is, I should be using the word proof. There's no proof that there's oxygen in water. There's no proof that water is H2O. There's no proof that hydrogen and oxygen make up water. There is no proof that you can even make hydrogen and oxygen from
water,
from splitting water.
Yeah.
No proof, one little bit.
Whatsoever.
No proof. So we got to the understanding, essentially, that we thought...
hold on.
I'm trying, if I'm missing something out.
Yeah, let me just give people... they say that one example that mainstream promotes to say that that water is made of hydrogen and oxygen is that they use the example of burning hydrogen gas in oxygen will produce
or anywhere
will produce moisture.
Water, sorry.
Now you got to think about this in a logical way.
Think about this in a logical way.
If you're going to burn hydrogen, a gas normally, if you burn a gas like hydrogen, it would be spent. It would be gone. So there's no hydrogen.
No hydrogen left.
It would generate heat.
An awful lot of heat.
And these mainstream normally would do this kind of test or demonstration in where there's a glass tube or somewhere where there's glass.
Absolutely. Can I just say about this? You know, you can collect your hydrogen in a boiling tube, for example, and you can get your
splint.
Your splint, lighted splint. You can pop it in, and you might see a little bit of water, maybe moisture in the bottom of the boiling tube. And people would say to you, "Well,
there you go. I've just created water.
You know,
from burning hydrogen."
As an example.
Yeah, but the people have to remember that there's all that is condensation.
Yeah, we think
from
that's
something
condensation.
Hot, touching a cold surface.
Yeah, in our understanding, what we think is going on, and that is quite simply, and that is when hydrogen burns or kind of like poof, it causes kind of like a small explosion, whatever you want to call it. It produces an awful amount of heat. That heat reacts with a cold surface or cold air to produce water. And they have this understanding that, well, whenever you burn the hydrogen, there's water produced. So there's obviously hydrogen in water. This is what they say. But we think that's all just rubbish. Because nobody can produce water from hydrogen, from splitting or even making hydrogen and oxygen, putting them together to make water. Nobody can do that.
Oh yeah, but that does also have a bearing on how water to air, or air to water through the process of condensation.
Yeah, because we had a little look.
How does air turn to water? And you've only got to look at condensation.
Condensation, absolutely.
How does water turn to air? You've only got to look at the process of evaporation.
Absolutely. When you think
Very
about,
simple.
well, I'm sure I mentioned this to somebody. I'm sure, but you know, if you got an ice cold beer, okay, out of the fridge, okay, it's really cold, and you stick it on your table, and it's quite warm in your room, you'll start noticing condensation appearing on the tin.
Sides.
Okay. Yeah, everyone's aware of this, but
Where did it come from?
We are aware that within the air there's an awful lot of water vapor. We're aware of that. Okay, and I think it's quite plausible to understand that that's what prevents us from seeing way into the distance. It's a lot of water vapor.
Well, that's another reason that accounts for why we see a big moon
A big moon as well.
On the
Why we see a big
horizon.
moon on the horizon, as it goes up higher, it gets smaller. It's simply because there's an awful lot of water
It's a
vapor
vapor.
around just above the surface, you know,
But
that magnifies the moon.
but that water vapor hasn't yet turned to air.
Absolutely. But so
Hasn't
the
made that
condensation.
transition.
So the condensation is there. But this is our understanding. And is it possible? Is it possible that the warm air, as soon as it touches the cold surface, forms moisture, forms water?
Mm.
Yeah, or just solely the warm air. I know we've mentioned that there's an awful lot of water vapor in the atmosphere, but let's take the Atacama Desert. The Atacama Desert, as I've mentioned earlier, is one of the driest places on the earth. We've also got Death Valley over in California or wherever it is. Okay, these are dry places. You will not probably see any or record any humidity or water vapor in the air.
Very little.
Very, very little. Okay. But they still have fridges working over there. If you took your beer out of the fridge and you stuck it somewhere, it would still get condensation forming on the tin.
Yeah.
Where did that water come from?
Mm.
Where did it come from? You know, these things make you think. They make you think. So we ended up doing some. We found some information about superheated steam, and we thought to ourselves, well, if you look at a hot air gun, a lot of people have used hot air guns to strip paint and lots
Well, that's
of
what you use it
paint.
for.
Yeah, strip paint. You know, just think of a heavy duty hairdryer. Really, what's it actually doing? Think about what it's doing. Okay, you've got your hot air gun. You've got heating filaments inside that, okay, basically wires that just get hot and glow because of the electric current that's going through. And it's got a fan at the back, and the fan is blowing air over these filaments, these hot filaments, which is obviously the hot filaments are heating up the air, and that hot air is being blown onto a piece of wood or some paint or whatever, and it's heating it up. So essentially it's the hot air, okay, that is causing that paint to come away, okay? And it is also, you can use these hot air guns, these paint stripper guns, whatever, to actually burn wood, okay? So it's the hot air that is burning the wood, okay? Now, when we did the superheated steam, it was quite interesting because, when we saw a video about them, because we thought to ourselves, you know, oh, let's have a go. So we had a go, you know, we lit the match, didn't we? The steam disappeared. We couldn't see any steam. Put the match over. The match lit. We scorched paper. We was very close with newspaper. We actually got the smoke coming off the top.
Yeah.
Okay, so we realized we were getting temperatures in our coil of up to
About 600.
700 degrees centigrade. If we'd have gone 100 degrees more, I'm sure we would have got the newspaper to light, to actually burn, get a flame. Okay, so
Possibly.
what we did, we thought to ourselves, well, what we could do is that we could collect the gas and basically filter it through water.
Bubble it through water.
And collect the gas. So we've got the kettle. We're heating the kettle up. The steam's coming out of the kettle, going through the coils, copper coils, where we're applying a lot of heat, which is about 700 degrees centigrade. The copper coil is glowing cherry red. The pipe's coming up. We've got an S bend, and it's going into water, and then going up into a jar filled with water, an inverted jar filled with water.
It's quite a very. What we do things that are very simple.
Absolutely, because they don't need to be complicated.
But we just take these things one step further. It's like the superheated steam. Mainstream says, but it's steam. It's still got little bits of water vapor. You might not see it.
Yeah, they say that superheated steam is water vapor.
And then you think, well, how can it light a match? How can it scorch paper?
It's got to be dry.
It's got to be dry, isn't it? So we thought, well, if we extend that and think, well, if you heat it up even more, then it will turn to air.
Absolutely, yeah,
It'll be dry. So we're thinking, oh, let's see if we can bubble that through water and capture that air.
Absolutely, because that would bubbling it through water will enable us to
is what's in there.
Yeah, bubbling it through water will enable us to get rid of any water vapor, any remaining bits of water vapor that are in there, in the gas that's coming through the copper tube, so we can just purely capture the gas.
So in there,
and we saw displacement. The water level of the water in the inverted jar started to go down because there was a gas being captured from the water that we're heating up. Now, if you boil, everyone should know that when you boil water in a kettle, the bubbles that are in there is air. They don't. It's not oxygen. It's not hydrogen.
It's just air.
It's just air. So all we did, we've just captured that air. So essentially, what we've created is distilled air, or pure air,
distilled air
from water.
Yeah,
it took us a lot of time because it's quite a boring kind of. You got to wear a t-shirt as well because it gets kind of hot. But it's worth doing because it makes you realise that you can get a gas from water. Water to air using heat. So simple.
That's amazing, that, isn't it?
So when you go above,
experiments on your channel as well, isn't it?
Yeah, the whole we did. There's a video on our channel about air to water using heat or something like this, but or water to air using it. But think about it logically.
The channel is in the description, so anybody wanting to see that experiment, just go over to their channel.
Absolutely, but the thing is that when you get above the cloud line in the atmosphere, where's the moisture?
Yeah, where's it gone?
Where's it gone? Why should there be any moisture there? Surely, when you think about it, there should just be air. When you think about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy when you think about that.
I was going to say something else. Actually.
It's crazy. There's me and Peter and you saying that we're doing experiments and things like this, and yet you're thinking, but we're just average kind of people.
No, we're average Joe blogs, really.
We know there's nothing special about us two at all. But all we do,
we apply common sense.
We just apply a bit of common sense to a situation. We think, oh, let's see if we can do this to it. It's a bit like your lime water. Carbon dioxide is meant to turn lime water milky. Well, okay then. Let's see what other things turn lime water milky.
Okay, absolutely.
And then we find that it's an alkali.
Only alkalis turn lime water milky.
Alkalis turn lime water milky. So we find out that CO2 is an acid gas.
So how can
an acid gas turn lime water milky?
Obviously, the information we're told about CO2
doesn't make sense.
Is rubbish. There's that. I mean, we found out about. We've done a bit about catalytic converters.
Oh, great one! Catalytic converters.
We've been in touch with our local council about vehicle emissions, nitrogen dioxides, nitrogen oxides, NOx.
Explain that one then. Explain that one to the chat room.
Well, to be honest, I've not had a reply from him, but it's a great one.
Well, we wanted to know about catalysts.
Catalysts, yeah. What is a catalyst? What do they do?
Because people may have heard of catalysts. What do catalysts do? And especially with chemical reactions, what role do they play?
Absolutely, yeah, of course.
When you watch these videos on YouTube, a lot of the time you're left scratching your head, thinking, I still don't understand.
Absolutely, yeah.
So then you have to read up about catalysts. And one example was catalytic converters that are fitted to motor vehicles. Every motor vehicle since 1993 in the UK has to be fitted with a catalytic converter.
That's diesel, petrol. Is it worth telling people what mainstream says a catalyst is?
No, I think we'll cover it. But a catalytic converter on a vehicle is meant to convert all the harmful gases that your engine produces, convert those into harmless gases.
Yeah, so you've got nitrogen oxide coming out from your engine. Okay, so it will turn the nitrogen oxide into, say, nitrogen, oxygen, water vapor, some carbon dioxide, that kind of stuff. Okay.
So we're like thinking, well, okay, but how does it work? No one's actually telling us.
How does it do
how
it?
does it actually do it? We find out that a catalytic converters are quite expensive.
Yeah.
And we find out that the reason why they're expensive is because we're told that they're fitted with palladium, rhodium, and platinum.
Very rare precious metals.
Rare precious metals. So like we're thinking,
whoa.
Oh, do you reckon we can believe that? So we then look at how a catalytic converter is made.
Absolutely.
Because YouTube is great for finding out how things are manufactured.
It's education in itself.
So you look at how it's manufactured and you're like thinking, I never saw any platinum, rhodium or palladium in that manufacturing process.
Well, let's see how, because a catalytic converter is inside the metal casing, there is basically a ceramic core, 2 ceramic cores some of them, all one. And the core is made of very, very, very tiny holes that run through the. So if you had a cross section of it, it would look like what would it look? It would look like a tennis racket kind of thing, wouldn't it? With holes that you could see through.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah,
if people can understand what I'm saying. But they're very, very tiny, maybe a millimeter and a half in.
They're tiny.
Yeah, very tiny. And they say they're lined with all these precious metals. But when you actually do look at how these, what are they called? Substrates. They're called substrates. But when you look at how these substrates are actually made, there's no mention that there's all these precious metals actually put in them.
Yeah.
So you think, but it's all bullshit then, isn't it?
Because you're led to think that it's the precious metals that are the catalyzers that catalyze.
Absolutely, they help
convert.
Absolutely, and without those precious metals,
you won't get any conversion.
Absolutely, you think to yourself, well, they've got to have those precious metals in, otherwise they wouldn't be able to. They act as the catalyst to change the nitrogen oxides into your harmless gases.
So then we kind of like the penny drops.
Absolutely. That's
all that happens is that a catalyst increases the temperature,
the heat. All a catalyst. What we came to realise, and that is, mainstream tells everyone that a catalyst takes part in a reaction, but without a catalyst being present, the reaction wouldn't take place, or it would take longer. So a catalyst speeds up a reaction, but it doesn't take part in that reaction,
and it doesn't lose mass.
But we've come to realise that essentially
it does that by heat.
It does it by heat. We've come to realise that a catalyst is essentially something that is able to provide heat within a reaction.
Yeah,
essentially, that's all a catalyst is.
That's how you speed up a reaction,
because that's how
heating it up.
Absolutely. And so essentially, what's going on is that you've got all these exhaust gases coming out of the engine, these nitrogen oxide, essentially, and it's hitting your first substrate, and that is supposed to basically split the nitrogen oxide into nitrogen and oxygen. Okay, I believe. Yeah. Okay, and essentially, how it does that is that the gas goes through all of these tiny pores, these holes, these tubes, or whatever you want to call them, in this substrate, channels. And it's exposed to so much heat. Yeah. All of that gas is exposed to so much heat. Okay, the oxygen there increases the heat. Okay, and it comes out. There's a I think there's a pipe where oxygen or air is added.
Yeah.
We all know that when you have a fire, if you want to make it hotter, you add air, you get the bellows out.
Yeah.
So you're getting those gases that come out of that substrate even hotter, and then they enter into the second substrate. So all you're doing in the catalytic converter is exposing your exhaust gases to more heat.
Yeah.
You're heating them up, and in so doing, you're breaking them down. Thank you. Yeah, you're breaking them down into all of your other gases, your oxygen, your CO2, your nitrogen, and your water vapor. So that's how it works. But there's no palladium, there's no platinum, and there's no rhodium in these catalytic converters, in these substrates. It's all rubbish.
Rubbish, yeah.
But they only do that just to justify you going down to your car dealership, and you're forking out 600, 700, 800 quid on a new one. You know, there you go.
It just made me think, oh no, not another lie. Not another
Absolutely,
one.
yeah, of course, yeah. Sorry,
Oh.
but absolutely.
Yeah, but one thing you have to remember, and is anything to do with motor cars, means that if government brings in a piece of legislation for motor vehicles, it will apply to all motor vehicles in the country. And what in a sense they're doing by that one piece of legislation is that they're creating an industry.
Absolutely.
They're creating jobs,
and they're creating a lot of money for companies. One of the things we learned through, because Peter's mentioned this, and that is, you know, a lot of this stuff is all backed by legislation. Legislation means that you have to do it by law, which guarantees companies money. It guarantees jobs. And over in America, they've been fitting catalytic converters since the early 1970s. And that's an awful long time. You know, we've had them over here since 1993. So there's an awful lot of kind of money to be made, if you want to look at it that way, in catalytic converters. But getting to the point with the councils, and that is, you see, councils have a duty to monitor air quality. This is where it gets great. This is where it gets good.
Yeah, so in other words, why are they monitoring nitrogen dioxide on roadsides
when cars by law are fitted with catalytic converters that get rid of the nitrogen dioxide, nitrogen oxide, split it, whatever, into harmless gases, nitrogen. The only gases that come out of that exhaust, nitrogen, allegedly, are nitrogen, water vapor, oxygen, carbon dioxide.
Yeah.
Why are the councils across the country, monitoring in their air, nitrogen dioxide from vehicle emissions?
Oh, and that's another lie then, because they've got everybody believing all the
absolutely, yeah, cool. Now, but it gets even worse than that. It gets even worse. You see, councils, due to recent legislation, they are required to identify these things called ACMAs, which are
air quality management areas.
Now, if you go online, do a bit of research, you'll find that most councils in the whole country have done basically nothing about these ACMAs. But all they're required to do by law, because councils, they do abide by the law, believe it or not. All they are required to do is basically do certain things, like design a strategy, an action plan. That's all they've got to do. They don't have to act. They don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
They don't have to do anything. They don't have to inform residents in these ACMAs that there's a potential risk to their health, that nitrogen dioxide levels are high. What was that word they used? Exceedances. They're exceeding the levels.
The national levels.
Because a lot of councils across the country are their levels are quite high, and they're not reaching their targets. But they're not telling people about. They're not implementing within these ACMAs. They're not implementing kind of like vehicle restrictions, like you can only use your car at certain times during the daytime.
Please drive slowly.
They're not encouraging. They are encouraging people to use cycles, I suppose, but in these ACMAs, they're not really doing much at all, because by law they don't have to.
Yeah.
So you ask yourself,
what's the point?
So is there a problem? Is it really a case that nitrogen dioxide from vehicle emissions is harmful? So I wrote to the council. We've been in correspondence with our local council from a guy from the environmental department, you know. And in my last letter, I actually asked him, I said, do you or anyone there at the council know of anyone who has died, either apart from
carbon monoxide.
Monoxide poisoning due to suicide, or have become ill solely because they have been exposed to harmful vehicle emissions because they live either on or near a roadside. Now, when you think about it, has anyone who's listening to this now heard of anyone who that has become ill or even died as a result of breathing in harmful exhaust emissions from cars because they live on or near a busy road?
I feel like Michael Collins.
You know, I don't know anyone.
Yeah, I feel like Michael Collins when he says, I don't remember seeing any.
Don't remember seeing any stars.
I don't remember seeing any stars. But I don't recall knowing of anyone who's
Absolutely,
died.
of course. I mean, I don't know anyone. I've never known anyone who's even been to hospital. You know, you've had Mrs. Jones retired. You know, she goes down the shop down the road. You know, has she been to the hospital because she's breathing because she's had her window open and the fumes of the traffic have been coming into her home and harming her lungs? It's ridiculous. It's rubbish.
You get a letter through lots of people's doors saying, sorry, but we've had to compulsory purchase your home because where you are living is in a dangerous area because of the traffic pollution that's in the air. So unfortunately, you have to move out.
Absolutely.
You don't hear of it. So, you know, it's not a problem.
It's not a hazard.
It's not a health.
So we've come to realise that there's no such thing. I know at first glance, when people listen to this, they may think it's a bit far-fetched, but there's no such thing as a harmful gas. There's no such thing as a harmful gas.
Well, it's the environment.
It's only the environment that one is exposed to that determines whether a gas is harmful or harmless.
Yeah,
it's the environment. But a gas is not harmful or harmless. And yet the councils across the country, are monitoring these so-called harmful gases.
Whereas
really they're harmless.
They should be monitoring the environment.
Absolutely. The whole point of it is it creates jobs for someone. It creates a job for someone at the council. It creates someone to manufacture all of these diffusion tubes. They have a lab where someone gets paid because the diffusion tubes are collected and taken back to the lab.
Something then? When I was married to the boy's dad, his brother put a pipe into the car and gassed it, whatever you want to call it. So what happens there then? That is harmful. That kills him.
Yeah, but it's the environment he's in. It's the environment he's in that is the harm. It's not the gas. It's the environment. He's in an environment where the environment is filled with that gas.
He's reducing the air.
So when you're on the roadside, you've still got plenty of air. How many people here listening to this have ever seen a tree or vegetation, grass or whatever on roadsides turn black and die because of the pollution, traffic pollution?
Motorways are a good example.
Motorways. I mean, how many cars? How many
lovely grass
the numbers
verges.
Of cars? But they've got lovely grass verges. There's trees. It's lovely.
What you're saying is all that's going into the air, and we're all seemingly okay.
No. Yeah. What? This is the point we're making about the whole thing about this, and that is, it's more than possible that the Earth we live on is a healing system, in that a lot of these, what the councils would say is harmful gases, are going into the air. They're diffusing into the air, where the air absorbs them and they disappear to become air.
Yeah, basically.
It's more than possible.
Yeah.
More than possible.
Yeah. In other words, what we're saying is that,
I mean, think about it logically. Think about it logically. If you had chlorine gas in a bottle and you open the bottle up in outside somewhere, you open the bottle up, where does that chlorine gas go? What happens to that chlorine gas?
It just goes in the air.
It goes in the air and it becomes harmless.
Absolutely.
Whereas if you held the bottle neck to your mouth and you breathed in, it would be harmful. This is the point we're making. Essentially it's all about understanding. And with our channel, all we do is kind of present a different understanding of something. It's like the rust, for example, changing people's perceptions, because you can gain a better understanding, a more simpler understanding of a process that people tell you is so difficult. And so you've got to have all these degrees and doctorates and all these bits of paper to understand it, and yet it's rubbish. All you need is some common sense.
Absolutely.
So there we go. I mean, it's just a really good way of looking at it. I think what we've done with the rust is really good. I mean, what we're going to do, I think we've got lined up with rust, is that what we want to do is I'd really like to find out why there is a pressure reduction in a container that's got a piece of wire wool in it that's rusting. That's one thing I'd like to do, but I'd really like to find out whether the gas that's the atmosphere, the gas that say we've put the wire wool in a jar filled with carbon dioxide. I'd really like to know whether that carbon dioxide is going to change through the rusting process, because it might well do. I mean, I don't know. These are the things that we'd like to do, because we're also doing something else. I'm not going to say what it is, but we're trying different variables, changing things around to see, something may change. I mean, one of the things we did, I've got to say this, one of the things we did find out, and that is I soaked some, I got a jar, had some sodium hydroxide, added some water, swished it around so the sodium hydroxide basically dissolved into the water. I added the steel wool, swished it around so that the steel wool was soaked in the sodium hydroxide solution, emptied the water, and just capped the jar, and guess what? It didn't rust. There was no rust on it whatsoever. Now, there was water present, there was air present, there was iron still present, and there was no rust whatsoever. Now, that shouldn't have happened. It should have rusted.
Well, mainstream would
tell us that it should have rusted, but it didn't rust at all. So, sorry, you were going to say.
No, I've got. When we're talking about rust,
there's nothing wrong with it. Rust is interesting. Lovely colour.
Two jars, steel wool in both.
You'll love this one.
One has just tap water in, soaked up to the top.
They're both submerged in. One submerged in tap water.
Yeah. In this one, there's tap water, but I've put some salt in one,
and the other one's got sodium chloride in.
And they've been in there for about a week now, I think. But you can clearly tell
there's a difference.
The one in clean tap water has gone kind of brown. The water's gone kind of brown colour, and the other one has gone kind of green. So when you look at it, you think. When you actually look at it, you think this is what's happening here is that the steel is separating. In the tap water, you're seeing the iron oxide, and in the salt solution, you're seeing the carbon.
Yeah, so it's quite.
Sorry, the coke.
It's quite easy to see that even though you're getting in both examples, you're getting the decomposition of steel into its constituent parts, which are your coke, carbon, whatever you want to call it, and your iron or your iron oxide. The striking part is that what you're seeing in one is the carbon being extracted from the wire wool, whereas in the other jar you're seeing the iron ore being extracted from the wire wool. So it's the kind of like the atmosphere that the wire wool is in that will determine what essentially is being extracted from the steel or iron.
Yeah, whether it's
the coke, carbon, or whether it's the iron ore, iron oxide.
Yeah, because
so it's really interesting.
It's like when you watch all these films about these ships that have sunk, and they're in the sea, at the bottom of the sea, and they send down the ROVs,
The probe.
and you see them, and they're all kind of like rusted and all that kind of stuff.
But are they rusted?
But are they rusting?
Are they rusting? We've got to do some. We've got to have a little look at this.
Because in my understanding, just from doing what I've done, it's only the carbon that's actually leaving the metal in salt water. What you see from an ROV is what I've seen in clear water, in tap water. And I'm thinking, but the ocean water's salty.
Salty, absolutely,
So
yeah.
it doesn't make sense.
Did people understand that?
Did you understand that?
Yeah. So what does that mean exactly then? If you're saying it's not
What it means is that what we observe in tap water, okay, the rust we see in tap water is what is
reminiscent.
Is reminiscent of what is observed allegedly
In the bottom of an ocean.
in the bottom of an ocean, which is seawater,
So,
which is
salty.
which has sodium chloride in it. So you're getting the same thing, but in two different mediums, and yet we've done something in salt water, and we're not getting that same kind of rustiness. We're getting a black, where the carbon's leaving the steel wall. So we're getting something completely different. So because when you do look at, I mean, we do need to maybe do some research on it. I'm only going off the top of my head, so please forgive if I'm wrong on this. But when you do see all of these shipwrecks, going down the subs, and they're looking around, do you see any rust, or do you see a lot of this growth growing on the metal?
Yeah.
That hides an awful lot of it, that makes you think that it's rusting. I mean, I don't know. I've never been down. I don't watch a lot of documentaries or videos.
We'd have to look at,
but we'd obviously have to do an awful lot of research.
They've never really done anything properly at all.
Sorry?
Everything they've given us, like in physics or chemistry or science, all of it is just a load of rubbish, and they've not done it properly at all.
Well, I want.
I
think you really, to be honest with you, I think the trouble with it is, and that is, they get you when you're young. You're young, you're ignorant about an awful lot of things. You go to school, and they pump you with all this information that you're. You come out of the education system with brain damage, basically. And it takes an awful long time to get over that. But if I had the mindset I've got now and I went to school, I'd be telling people, but you've got this wrong. Where's your proof? Where's your proof? I'd be a lot more critical of what I'm being told.
Yeah, what we'd have to do, we'd have to watch a video of a ship being salvaged, or
a ship being salvaged. Yeah, absolutely.
Because when it comes to the surface, then you can see.
You can see whether it's rusted or not.
The rusting process.
I know what you're just saying is that there's different things happening. So that means maybe other things that we keep, whatever they want to call them, lead, zinc, they may be one of the same thing, but something different has happened to them and turned them into other things.
Well, we've come to the, we had a little look at how. Oxygen is made, or one of the ways oxygen is made, for example, and how they make oxygen in one way, or one way to make oxygen, is to liquefy air. So they get air and they essentially put it through molecular sieves, under pressure, obviously. And basically they freeze it. They put it through a, what's that, Dewar flask or something like that, or coil. And then, or they freeze it. They go to low temperatures. They freeze air
and they force it under high pressure.
Oh, sorry. They put it through. Yeah, force it under high pressure and low temperatures, which basically causes the air to liquefy. And basically, they put it in this evaporation tank, and they allow it to evaporate, and they tap off at different stages of the evaporation process: the oxygen, the nitrogen, the argon, blah 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 blah. Now, you see, our point of view is that we think that air in that situation is all the same stuff. The oxygen, the nitrogen, the argon, it's all the same stuff. A good analogy is think of grit paper, abrasive paper. It's all the same stuff. Let's call it sandpaper. Okay, you've got sandpaper. You can have P60 grit, which is very, very coarse, going right up to 1200. Okay, so you've got all your grits in between, but it's all the same stuff. It's all sandpaper. This is what we think is the same with air and the constituents that can be produced from the liquefaction of air, like oxygen, nitrogen, argon, all this kind of stuff. We think it's all the same stuff. It's just got different properties, because of the the point at which it's kind of like taps off, as it were,
Yeah, basically that's all it is. There's nothing special about it.
Absolutely, science has people think that you've got absolutely wow. Whoa, did you see that?
Whoa,
they want people to be in awe of how well they can do this or do that, but at the end of the day, a lot of it's very, very simple.
Yeah.
It's straightforward. I mean, I was looking at somebody gave me a link to watch. Johnny M gave me a link to watch a video. It's in the water or something like this, a documentary. Equinox, the Channel 4 TV program. It's online on YouTube. I think it's called It's in the Water, where they go through different. I think four people have produced some kind of invention or creation that's got to do with water and generating excess kind of like power, as it were. I've forgotten what it's called, but one particular guy. Now, what he did is that he created on a spindle. Okay, he's got this solid drum, and he's drilled holes around the outer circumference of this drum all the way around. Okay, he's encased the drum. He's got a pipe coming in for your in feed and an outlet pipe, okay, where water's basically pumped through. The drum is spun round at so many RPMs. Okay, the water goes in cold and out comes the water hot. You've got hot water purely just through turning this drum. Okay, now I think in my understanding, I think the water's just compressed. It's compressed so much that essentially it heats up, because as we're talking about the aircraft, the more you compress something, it gets hotter. And that's how I think this thing works. But, it's so easy to have, what's the word? It's nice to have that ability to look at something in a very simplistic way and say, that's how it works. Whereas you've got other people who think, well, yeah, but it's the triangulation of this, and it's the, it's all the motive.
You've got to factor that in.
You've got to factor this into that and all this, but it's so simple. It's so simple. But science, wants itself to be on this pinnacle, on this pedestal. It wants to be above everyone. It wants to be, right at the top. But science is just a discipline like religion, like anything else. You just got to know the jargon, and you can have your own understanding. And it's, as we all know, it's just a religion at the end of the day, science.
Well, very much appreciate the fact that you do these experiments and you talk about them, and that you've got a good sense of humour and you're really down to earth.
Well, do you know something? I've got to say that one thing, and that is the only thing that can get you through this life is a sense of humour, a smile on your face, and having a lot of positivity. Because at the end of the day, you go outside your front door, you meet so many unhappy people. You need to have that smile. You need to have that positivity about you, because it's going to see you through an awful lot.
Absolutely, yeah.
Pete,
So,
Pete, big hugs to you. But you're yawning now. We have been going for nearly 3 hours. Is it you feel that we've talked enough, or do you want to talk a little bit longer?
Well, he's got to cook me dinner.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
yeah. I could settle for these chocolate bars, actually.
No, they're mine. Well, I think
Have we done it? Have we outstayed our welcome?
Well,
No, not at all. But it's just I saw Pete yawning a couple of times.
Yeah,
You
I
can
am
talk
yawning
a little bit
even while
longer if you
I'm
want.
not bothered really, because you guys go into 5 o'clock in the morning, don't you?
Sometimes we have, on private.
Yeah,
When
sure.
we finish the hangout. Well, sometimes we come on at like stupid times. Occasionally we have.
Well, like 5 o'clock in the morning
after the hangouts for quite a long time. We have done, yeah.
Well, I think we should. I think we should bow out now. You know.
Yeah.
Give me time. Give me time to cook. Give you time to cook me dinner.
Yeah.
Absolutely, of course, yeah. But I think that before we go, I suppose thanks ever so much for having us on. Thanks ever so much for everyone for listening, and
it's been a
final
pleasure.
thought, maybe. Yeah, it's been a pleasure, obviously. But yeah, flat Earth. It's hopefully flat Earth will be the change.
Well,
that everyone wants.
I think we're nearly reaching a point where you can go and talk to someone and they know someone who's heard of flat Earth.
Yeah, it's so nice. You can go somewhere. I mean, I was in the pub once some months ago, really, and some guy was a flat earther. It's getting to a point where we're going out and we're meeting people. Oh, you're a flat earther. Oh yeah. Oh, I know someone. Yeah, my mate, or blah 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 blah. Whereas a few years ago it'd be quite rare. So give it another 3 years. Yeah,
it'll be a complete difference.
It'll be a completely different ball game. So and if we all do our own little bit and do all this kind of stuff, keeping on, keep the faith.
Because you can't, as a flat earther anyway, you can't do everything. I mean, I'm really sort of, we've got like Dave Marsh who's doing the moon. We've got other people doing their bits. You've got Robert Force, she likes the sun and going to the beach, all doing their bit, recording what's really happening, like you are with these experiments.
And
teaching us that most of it's still a lie again. And what it really means. I mean, like, I'm a bit shocked about the catalytic. What was it again? The catalytic
converters.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's rubbish. It is absolutely. And the worst thing is that we have a different mindset to an awful lot of people. We do see things in a very analytical kind of way, which does help us to sift through a lot of bullshit. But I have to admit, it's so nice to have that, because, when the cookie crumbles, where where your bread's buttered, that this is rubbish and that's rubbish, but that's true. You can sift through what is truth and what isn't truth, which is really good. And I suppose that our videos, our channel, along with everyone else's, is all helping people to basically have a straightened mind.
Yeah, basically
straighten their minds out, because we've all been through the education system, and I suppose I'd go as far as saying it's all damaged us to a certain degree, and it's just so nice to get our minds back to where they should be.
Clarity of mind.
Sun and moon give you two great big flat Earth hugs.
Sure. But so I suppose on that note, we better Foxtrot Oscar.
Yeah, I'll next Friday. I'll write to you about next Friday, but shh at the moment.
Everybody knows. You've told everybody.
Anyway, I'd like to say thank you very much to everybody in the chat room. We've had many people come into the chat room. It's really great. And
we don't.
Sure, yeah, I'd like to thank everyone for having us.
Thank you to Astral. Patricia,
thank everyone for putting up with us as well.
Patricia, I'm not sure if Patricia might have. Patricia, she's fallen sometimes. Asleep. She just
maybe she's fallen asleep.
Or maybe, yeah.
Maybe she's fallen asleep on her cushion.
She didn't have a very good day today, so she might have actually fallen asleep. But she'll watch the rest of it.
Oh, sure, yeah, of course. Anyway.
But anyway, I'd like to say then a really big thank you. I love having you on, and you're so interesting. And down to earth and funny and
Friday.
Bold Fry.
Oh, are you?
Yeah, and if Baldfire is listening, hello. Probably one of our subs. I think he's a sub, but yeah.
I'm not
But
sure
yeah,
if
thanks ever so much.
I'm not sure if I've seen him in there tonight, but he does come in our chat room.
Sure. Yeah, sure. Well,
Yeah.
if he's there.
Well, we've got it
But
on
for
camera.
everybody, even if they didn't know, there's your channel with these experiments on. But hopefully, you've learned things today.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, I'm sure lots of people have learned an awful lot this evening.
Well, absolutely, yeah.
Absolutely, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
So so always remember till next time. If something doesn't make sense, it's
Peter,
nonsense.
thank you so much.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
And
sure.
to the chat room.
Yeah,
So,
thanks ever so much, everyone.
Yeah. Thanks,
we're
everyone.
back
Been
on
a pleasure.
Monday.
Been a
so
pleasure. We'll see you soon.
The pleasure's all ours, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bye then. See you
Bye,
then.
everybody.
Bye.